start streaming. I'm going to start recording. See if it pops up here, Chew.
All right, so we're going to see if we're live here in a second.
Hello, hello. And guys, just let us know where you're from and if you can hear us all right, if everything sounds good. There's Chewy in all his glory.
All right. In a world where Chewy is waiting to make sure that we're actually live.
Let's hope.
Let's see here. So guys, as we're getting ready to get started, we're going to make sure that everything's going with the YouTube channel, and then we'll get rolling here in just a moment.
Thank you guys for the questions. We got a ton of questions as well.
A ton of questions.
So it was awesome to get a ton of questions from everybody. It was good stuff. Good stuff. So I think we are live, Chewy.
Are we live?
I believe so.
All right.
It says Jiu-Jitsu is live.
Cool.
So here we are. What's going on, everybody?
Bring my thing up real quick.
Tell us where you're from, guys, and
Yeah, as you guys are jumping in, let us know where you're from, and we're gonna get rolling here in just a second. I was double checking. So my lovely, beautiful assistant Jessica, my girlfriend.
she's the best. By the way.
She was checking on us to make sure that we have a sound, because the last time we did one of these things, the sound came all funky back, and so I didn't want to get funky sound.
We got funky sound, or are we good?
No, we're good. She
Yay.
says good. So
Thanks, Jess.
So yeah, guys, in case you don't know what we're doing, we're getting ready to read off some questions that we received from you guys.
Thank you to D-Style Boxing for the
What did he say?
the donation. He said, been subbed for a while, El Paso, Texas. Thank
cool.
you, sir.
Thanks, brother.
Or
appreciate you.
whoever.
Can
All
you,
right,
Can you
guys.
bring it up on the
Yeah,
computer?
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
All right.
Chewy, why don't you start him off with a question while I'm...
All right, so Eugene's going to get all this stuff going, and I'm going to start with a question here. So we got a bunch. Thank you guys. We had a bunch on YouTube. We had a bunch on Instagram, and let's see here. Here's a good one. This one's from Angie. Angie Young on Instagram. This one was Instagram. She said, should I stop nagging my husband to try jiu-jitsu for the sake of not being a heckling wife, or do I persist for the sake of what might be one of the best discoveries ever for him, to ever help him? So Angie, so that's a good question. You know, so this is the thing, right? Like, this is one of those things where we, you know, I know you've been training for a little while. We get into things and then we want to spread them to other people, especially if they've been really good to us. You know, like if things have really impacted us, we want to spread them to everybody else. And then we got to be careful about that, because for me, I've done this with other people plenty of times. Like, you know, I've come down on people and almost been like a zealot for jiu-jitsu or for weight training or for whatever. And you got to be careful, because you don't want to come across as like one of those people that's like, you know, a hardcore carnivore diet or hardcore vegan diet person who then like proselytizes other people because of their views, you know? And especially in a relationship, it's really hard, because there's just such a different dynamic between the two, you know? Like, for instance, you could literally have like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whomever be the most knowledgeable person about something, but then when it comes to actually teaching the other person about it, it's like a different thing, because in a relationship we're equal, and we, at least from what my experience is, we don't like to be sort of under the other person, right? What I would say is, going back to it, I wouldn't nag your husband to get into it, right? If you're enjoying it, that's good, and I would, as long as he's supportive of it, I think it's great, and just keep training. And if anything else, a lot of times people make the decision to do things when they're ready for it. And that's why I say that, you know, the best way of being is not to point and wag the finger at other people, or be, as you called it, a heckling wife, but instead be the light. Be the light that attracts the bugs, attracts the moths, right? So in the summertime, if you look up at the lights, there's bugs swarming around the lights. So just like that, people are attracted to people doing certain things, you know, and it impacts people in certain way. And so a lot of times when people see other people making big changes and doing things, a lot of times it can impact them in a positive way. The only thing that I would say is maybe give the offer. Not to persist, not to like prod and like, you got to go do this, or you should be doing this, or whatever, but just to leave the offer out there. Say, hey, do you want to go work out with me? You want to go to the gym with me? Like, hey, you want to try it out? Whatever, that kind of stuff. You know, leave it out there for them and let them take it if they want to, but I wouldn't be the heckling wife or push them too hard, because a lot of times when people push on people, when they push their ideas on people, I mean, we see this right now. When people push ideas on other people, people instantly, knee-jerk reaction is to resist, even if it's a good idea. because people don't like to be pushed on. They don't like to be like, you got to do this, right? So I would just leave it for him to try, and encourage him to try it if he wants to. Leave it out there for him. But otherwise, maybe they have different discoveries that they need to find, and kind of go from there.
All right.
What do you think about that? Because you've been married for a while. Like, I mean.
So I have a couple of theories on this, not theories, but experiences. One is actually teaching jiu-jitsu to my wife.
Yeah.
And then also like giving medical advice or like physical therapy advice to family members.
Sure.
It's kind of like it's something about you being family or something that they don't want to be told. Like, hey,
yes.
I don't want to be told that this is the way, like, that I should do it. I want to figure it out on my own. It's like making your own path. But also, I think when it comes from somebody else, it hits you a little differently.
Yeah.
So for me, like I've told like my wife or my dad, like, hey, do this for your back pain, and they're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody else tells them the same thing, and they're like, oh, I should probably be doing this thing.
Same thing you said though.
Yeah.
I think maybe part of that too is also like a lot of times when we're close to people, we see people as people.
Yeah.
Right. So for instance, like, you see people and you get to know they're good, they're bad, they're ugly.
Yeah.
You get to see that person as a 3-dimensional human being, right?
Yeah.
When you don't actually know someone very well and you only know their sort of persona.
Yeah.
Like this guy's a doctor. You've only seen him in a doctor's office. You don't really know who that person is. He could be like, this guy could be some giant idiot or something.
Yeah.
But because he's in this persona, this whatever, it makes you trust him because you don't know that person wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of us, every one of us is a flawed being, and when we start to when we start to pick away at people's flaws, their credibility then kind of goes away.
Right,
So a lot of times, like, we see them as just a regular person, just like us, which we're all regular people. But whenever we see the person, maybe with their information that's pretty good,
right,
but with none of the baggage of them being a human being, we trust that person's opinion more because we just see that side of them. Maybe I don't know. That's just a random thought that came up.
That makes total sense. So by the way, we're gonna give away 5 products today, five little products.
Probably more than that. Yeah,
well, initially, and then we've got one. Matt from Epic Roll, who's one of our sponsors, wanted to give away one of his new rash guards. So we will pick somebody out for that as well, and then we're gonna give away a couple of these guys over here. Little Jugo play. Those are great little cards for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing.
Shout out to who we got in here. I'm just looking at the thing. We got a shout out to.
Can you see those?
Yeah, I can see him. Randall Martin, what's up, buddy? We got, who was the other one there? What's up, Chewy Coops? Jiu-Jitsu Journey, what's up, buddy? And then we got, there's one more. There's another one. But hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
we'll kind of keep going.
So there's some great questions here. We'll try to we'll pick a few good ones. So some of you guys may be white belts, maybe your gym's not open. So this is from C's 805, and so they ask, what is the best way for a beginner white belt to train or progress alone at home if unable to attend a gym during the pandemic? Dummy, instructionals, solo drills, just focus on stretching, home workouts. That's C's 805. Great question.
C's 805. So I'll tell you what maybe I did. So so this is interesting. So I started wrestling first. So I had a little bit of experience, right? I got distracted. So I want to first off thank you for the donation, but I got distracted by the name Dookie Eater. Dookie Eater donated a little bit of money. Appreciate you. Hell of a name. But going back to it, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was wanting to get into grappling, and I wanted to get into fighting really, but jiu-jitsu I saw it as kind of like a springboard because I thought about it back then. I was like, okay, I wrestled. I wanted to do jiu-jitsu so I can learn how to submit people, and then I wanted to get into MMA. That's why I started. Well, I used to watch like anything I could get my hand on as far as jiu-jitsu matches, competitions, MMA fights with grappling. I used to watch grappling just constantly. And again, this isn't a time before YouTube, so I had to do some digging, and I even had to, I remember I would, there was a company that I bought a bunch of videos from, and I didn't realize it, but they were all bootlegs. So they would send you like the ADCC like 2003 or whatever, and then you would get this VHS tape with like a crappy label on it that was printed off someone's like laser printer from 1999. But I would get these matches and I would watch them. Now, I didn't know how to do the techniques, but one of the things that happened, which is something that I notice is different from some people that get into jiu-jitsu fresh without doing a lot of research, is that I knew exactly what the positions were. I knew what the general idea was. I knew what the goal of jiu-jitsu was. I knew all the basic ideas of it. You know, it's like it's almost like I knew how the chess pieces moved in chess. I just wasn't very good at it yet, so I had to practice. So in jiu-jitsu, I knew kind of the ideas. I knew what the different positions were. I knew all the names and everything else. I knew mount, back mount, side control, that stuff. And so when I came in, I was more easily able to absorb the information because here's what I think about in jiu-jitsu, and I've heard this term used before. I didn't invent this. I heard it somewhere. I think it was from my buddy Tim Sled. He shared it with me once. But he said that jiu-jitsu is like a language, right? So jiu-jitsu is like a language, and you start off by learning your ABCs. You eventually learn some words, then you'll learn sentences. You start to get into context, and then you can string together, you know, these long sentences, and then someday you write a novel, right? Well, with that, if jiu-jitsu is a language, me at least understanding the basic positions and kind of what the general idea was, I knew my ABCs. So then when my coach was in there, started teaching us words, again, different positions, specific techniques and strategies, I was more easily able to absorb it because, again, the language wasn't foreign to me. What do you think, buddy?
As far as tell me the question really fast. Sorry,
so it was the guy from C's, whatever.
Yes,
but wanted to train. So again, going back to it, stay in shape and everything else, but watch a lot of jiu-jitsu and get immersed in jiu-jitsu, like by watching the matches, watching videos, and seeing matches, see how they work, and basically get an understanding of what you're getting into, so that as soon as you start training, you're going to be able to more rapidly absorb the information.
So I think it depends on a few things. The type of learner that you are. How do you learn best? Do you learn best by like visual learning, movement, kinesthetic? Like for me, I need to see something and then I need to be able to do it. So a lot of times, a grappling dummy is not ideal, but having like maybe a kid that's like maybe like your son or daughter, or even having your wife as a participant may be helpful, but like just implementing that way, and even having a buddy or somebody you can train with. But I think that's the best way, is like to watch the technique. I like to take notes on like subtle things, like maybe grips or certain positions, things like that, maybe I need to be aware of, and then after that, like I try to implement. So you had somebody mention, you just posted you sent an email about somebody being told that they were training during quarantine. It was actually from them watching your videos, right?
Yeah. So it was a woman that she had bought a couple of the products, and she bought them during quarantine.
Yeah.
So she said that after she had watched them, like the ideas were broken down simple enough and effectively enough that when she came back, her coach said, like, have you been doing some secret training? Because she was able to effectively hit some of the stuff. And again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. For me, and I share this with you because I tried to do jiu-jitsu with my buddies, and I tried to do jiu-jitsu with people that had no idea how to do jiu-jitsu. And we pieced together some stuff very sloppily. Right. But literally, I learned more in the first week of my first jiu-jitsu training sessions with a trained coach than I learned in like a whole summer's worth of downstairs basement jiu-jitsu on the carpet. So my thing is, if you've got a good body that's in good shape, you're strong, you're lifting weights, you're stretching, maybe doing some yoga, whatever you want to do, and then you're immersing yourself in the ideas of jiu-jitsu through watching matches, through the different videos on YouTube. There's so much out there. And then when it comes time to actually learn from a real coach, you'll basically have this nice foundation to just ramp it up, opposed to trying to learn it all from scratch. Again, you can do solo drills, you can do all this stuff, but I think that if you're going to be trying to leading the blind, to me, there's a better use of time, and I think you would be better served by getting your body in the best shape possible and then ramping it up once because again, COVID's not going to last forever. Yeah, that's the way it is, right? And then once things go back to some normal, you can get to training, then get after it.
Awesome. Chew, you got another question?
Sure.
All right. And we had a
big shout out. I want to go up to Adrian there. Roll up a little bit. Big shout out to Adrian Q, SOTX Grappler. Appreciate your donation, brother.
Thank you so much.
He's a frequent commenter on the YouTube videos. Always look for him. They always have some good feedback. And thank you for Steve Ravetti. Thank you, man. I'm glad the videos have been helping you, brother. Appreciate your donation. Here we got a good one from Josh McKinney. Josh, he's a friend of mine out in St. Louis, and he runs a gym out there. Really good dude. I remember rolling with Josh. We were I came into St. Louis to train with my buddy Kyle Watson, and Josh was a brown belt at the time, and he's a smaller guy, but he's a hell of a roll, man. Tough roll.
What made him tough? What was tough about his?
Good base, good balance, and like he was hard as hell to sweep. Like, you know, because I looked at him, I was like, oh, okay, you know, he's a brown belt. He looked like he's, you know, maybe like 170, maybe 160. I can't remember. Josh, if you're bigger or smaller, don't take offense to it. But you know, he wasn't a very big guy, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna kind of take it easy on him a little bit.
Sure.
God bless, man. It's like it wore me out. You know, I was like trying to sweep him, and he was just so hard to like put down. He was like a friggin' cat. But he and I were doing some work, doing some like. I ended up doing like a little coaching program. And we ended up talking about some stuff. And one of the questions that he sent, he says that you wear a lot of different hats, as do a lot of coaches, but always seem to do a good job with being consistent. I was curious, do you have any tips on time management? I do have some good tips on time management. A lot of you guys may not like this one, but get off social media, get off your damn phone. I say this to everyone because like these damn things will suck your life dry, bro. Like you can ask Eugene, you can ask anyone that knows me. If you text me, you're probably not going to get an immediate answer back. Is this right?
Dude, it sucks.
It might be tomorrow.
It's like Chewy hates me. Yeah. No, he's like, dude, I just don't check my phone ever. And plus, you've got like massive amounts of messages probably coming through.
I do.
So all this, it's extremely exhausting to try to stay.
No, it's not because I batch it.
Okay.
So I'll go through it and I'll do it at a certain time in the day. I'm not going to sit beholden to my phone. So a lot of times what happens is, like for instance, when I'm working in the morning or whatever, if I'm reading my phone, I toss it in the corner, put it on silent, and I'm not messing with it. You know, and again, it's amazing how much time you get from doing this. And if you guys are incredibly stressed, which a lot of people are because of fear-mongering media, it's amazing how when you separate yourself from those messages, how good you feel, right? And I know this to be true because I remember when I was in high school, I stopped watching the news. I was 15 years old. I was like, I got to stop watching the news because the news was always promoting all this fear, right? And then I remember I'd be in the mat room with everybody and everything was always cool and I'd be around people and everything in my day-to-day life seemed really decent. But then the news was telling me to be afraid, be scared, whatever. World's coming to an end. But then it was like, oh, it's not though.
Right.
So I stopped watching the news and then I was like, oh man, I feel pretty good. So I've always been really guarded about watching too much consumption, you know what I mean? And this is why, like, and again, it's a good take a step back anyway, so that even if you have a very strong conviction towards something, you can have your own original thought.
Right.
Instead of getting like pulled in and sucked in. And again, it all happens to all of us. But one of the tips I'd say is get away from your phone as much as possible. You know, again, you still have to use it. We all use them. You can use them to talk to your friends and everything else. There's nothing wrong with it. But make sure that I have typically, most of the time, my time on the phone is blocked out. So if I'm on my phone, it's like, okay, this was actually blocked out time. This is dedicated screw off time and I'm just going through stuff. Or this was dedicated time to make a post and sort of message you guys who are messaging me. Stuff like that. And there's also a really good book if you guys ever want to check it out. It's one of my favorite books on time management.
Okay.
It was Dan Kennedy, he's a marketer. He's like one of the most prolific marketers of all time, direct response guy. And it's called actually I'll look it up real quick for you. He is like this. He calls it like it's ruthless, right? He says ruthless time management. Dan Kennedy.
One thing that I've done while Chewy's looking that up with the phone situation, I have a problem with being on my phone a little too much. So I've started kind of like leaving it in the other room, and then you still get pulled back because you may have an Apple Watch or it's one of those smart watches.
I'll get rid of that stuff.
And so you got to take that off too. So like sometimes what I'll do to take a little break, I'll leave my phone in the other room, and I'll take my watch off, or I'll put my regular, like I've got like a little G-Shock watch. I'll wear that thing just to like not feel pulled to constantly, because you know
they make them that way.
Sucks.
So think about this, right? Like by the way, the book's name is No BS. Time Management for Entrepreneurs, the No Holds Barred, Kick Butt, Take No Prisoners Guide to Productivity and Sanity. Great book. Again, some of that stuff that he teaches in the book is going to be hard for people because we have these attachments. Like, for instance, I'll tell people sometimes, like I told one of my students, I was like, get off social media for a week. Kid was having anxiety attacks and stuff.
Man.
I was like, get off social media for a week. And he was like, he kind of like had some reservations. Just do it. Just see how you feel. He calls me up a week later. He's like, dude, I feel so much better. Yeah. I was like, imagine that, right? You're not being friggin' like fear being pounded down your throat.
Right, right.
But again, one of the things that it's like, for instance, like they're saying Apple Watch. I was like, I don't want that thing. I was like, you want me to have something that's now I've got this thing buzzing in my pocket. I got something that's buzzing on my wrist. And again, it's like McDonald's, right? Like they put sugar in everything, so it makes it more addictive.
Sure.
Right? It's like, okay, we're gonna make this thing buzz constantly, where everything has a push notification. You can't so if you're just trying to
escape it,
you can't escape it. So if you're sitting down next to it, the damn thing, pay attention to me. You know, it's like a needy significant other. You know?
Oh boy. You talk about anyone in particular, Chew?
Hey man, we all had one.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But Jess is not needy at all.
I'm not saying that.
No, Jess is fantastic.
Jess is the best, by the way.
Jess and I, we were talking about this last night. Jess and I, when we got together, I said, "Hey, listen, darling, love you." And I was just like, laying out the ideas that I had about a relationship, so we get that stuff out of the way. I say, "Listen, I don't want to be on a leash." I was like, "I want a big fenced-in yard." Yeah. Like, we draw the boundaries. I feel like I have a little place to roam, but I don't cross the boundaries. But don't put me on a leash, right? I don't want to be on a leash. And so it's the same thing. It's like, again, just like that, you have to draw boundaries for your life.
Sure.
And for me, one of the things that is that I don't want to spend too much time on this phone. Now, I love using it like for Audible, my Audible subscription. I watch YouTube lectures on there constantly. But as far as like hanging out on social media, I've fell into the trap before too, where all of a sudden I'm looking at my social media times up, my work productivity is down, like my well-being is down because I'm mentally taking in other people's thoughts and not being able to have my own original thought. And so for me, it's a really good time to step away from it. But there's some other things that you can get into. Another one, just for the last one I'll share with you, is actually recognizing what your time is worth.
Okay.
So for instance, most people think of hourly work.
Yeah.
But the reality is, for most of us, we don't work 8 hours consistently and effectively, right? I mean, let's be honest, especially if you're a small business owner like Josh is and I am, you only get so many really effective hours of work every day, right? And if you were to take that amount of work, like those few hours that are actually effective versus the time you're actually just kind of screwing off or whatever.
Right.
I mean, even an office job, like there's times where you're really burning it up, and there's times where you're just like sitting by you're sitting around getting water and at the coffee machine, like talking to people and stuff like that. You're not working. You're on the clock, but you're not working, right? But there's times where you're actually really doing effective like work. If you take that time and see what that's worth and then divide how much money you bring in versus that number, your time actually goes up. And so if you understand what your time is actually worth, like when people like sometimes will like, I've had people like ask me to do consulting stuff, and then I'm like, well, here's the time, here's how much it costs, and they're like, that seems ridiculous. I'm like, that's what actually my time's worth. It's like, and people don't respect their own time. Yeah. Right. They show up late for everything. They give away their time too easily, right? And so they don't know what it's worth. And when you understand what it's really worth, that's a powerful number. And so that kind of can help you guide decisions more effectively. Because when you understand what your time is really worth, plus it's the only resource you don't get back. Right. So why would you waste it,
It sometimes I think it's hard for people to say no. For me, is like, if people reach out or have questions on stuff, it's hard for me, even if I don't have time, it's hard for me to say no, because but again, you have to go back to seeing what your time is worth, because it's valuable. And, for me, like I've realized, like, is this worth me taking time away from my kids or my family? That's kind of where I compare it to. And I was like, man, I'd rather be with my kids and doing this kind of stuff. So that's for me kind of been a hard thing. But let me ask you this. What about scheduling?
Going back to it.
Go ahead.
Saying no.
Yes, that's a hard thing.
That's a hard thing in general, right? Yes. We've been conditioned to not be able to say no. Right, because
or you're an asshole if you
because kids start saying no when they're a kid, and you're like, you're doing this, right? Like, so a lot of times people they have to learn how to say no again, because it's a powerful thing to say no. I don't want to do this. I don't believe the way that you believe, right? But we get conditioned to not be able to say no anymore, right? So no is a powerful thing to take back for yourself. But going back to what you're saying,
how do you schedule? Like, so I think that one thing I get off of task or spend too much time doing certain things because I don't really schedule my time as well as I should. Sure. How do you go about scheduling your time?
Yeah, I have to do this because I for me, I've got I've got a sort of several irons in the fire.
Oh yeah.
So I typically the night before, I write down what my goals are. Now, I've seen where people block out like exactly minute for minute what they're going to do with it. Yeah. I don't have that in me, and I try to do it, and I just never really get it down to. So what I end up doing is I'll do something where I will, in the night before, I will identify what my main tasks are, and that's what I'll focus on, like 5 of them. Usually it's like 5 tasks that I really want to knock out that day, and that's what I'm focused on, and I just go after them. Yeah. And again, I kind of have an idea of what I've got to do that day, but I don't necessarily block it out. I just merely have my 5 that I have to get done, and I go after them. Yeah,
so you keep it kind of, I guess, keep it kind of small list. Don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, because, think about it. Like, a lot of times people make these giant lists and they never get anything done. Right. But you make a little small list that you can bite off. It's like, it's a lot easier to do. And it's much more rewarding because you're hitting a little bit by little bit. So typically, like, let me show you real fast. I think I got it here. So,
what you got?
I'll show you. So this is my weekly list.
Do you want me to
So,
play it? There you go.
Huh? What's that?
Show it.
So this is my weekly list. You can't really see it here. Huh? Okay. So this is my weekly list, and basically what I do is I have all this stuff lined out, and then what I'll do is I put on a little index card.
Okay.
That has my 5 from that list.
Gotcha.
And
so you have like a master list.
Yeah, I got the master list. This is what the big goal is for this week, and then I got the little card with me every day. So when I sit down to do whatever I'm doing, I'm like, all right, what's on the agenda today?
Yeah.
And I've got those little broken down.
Yeah.
And if for some reason if I don't get it done, it's still in the master list. If not, I get to cross off the stuff on the master list and then move down to the next day.
Gotcha.
And so that's been really helpful to me as far as like managing multiple projects, staying consistent with everything, and being able. Consistency's hard, right? Because doing all the different tasks, you got to stay disciplined with your time because it's a lot of work on all these different areas. And so that's something I do that's really helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. I've got a question.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce this name exactly. Or Kurt Quines, I think.
Kurt Quines.
So this is kind of, I feel like, a lot of us have done jiu-jitsu for quite a while. We almost have all this buy-ins. Like once we get to a point, we're not gonna quit.
Yeah, of course.
Like so, I don't know. Maybe people get unmotivated. But this is more a motivation question. How do you guys remain motivated and consistent with training? I feel like I try to find every excuse not to train. So it's a tough one. I think for me initially is like. You always talk about what's your goal. Like, what you think jiu-jitsu is not for everyone. I tend to think like maybe it is. I'm more along that camp that I think everyone can benefit.
Everything. Everybody can benefit.
Right. And that's why I think it's for everyone. I think everyone should do it to some extent because I feel like it's so beneficial.
I think things would be better if people did, not even just jiu-jitsu, if people did things like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, like difficult things.
Difficult combat sport. I think combat sports, one-on-one combat sports where you're doing some regular sparring, there's something powerful about that primitive form of communication that I think if more people did, it would be beautiful.
Right. Well, what do you think as far as, do you struggle with, motivation? Is that something that you feel like maybe?
Of course.
Okay. Well,
everybody struggles with motivation.
What do you think it is? How do you realize or maybe figure out like, okay, I'm having less motivation? And even I think one of the things is if you're not motivated, you should even be more, it's more beneficial for you to show up and train.
So we talked about this on one of the Patreons, I think. So whenever I get into something, this is the way I've always been since I was a teenager, right? I end up creating these 2 visions for myself, right? One vision is a negative vision where it's all the stuff I don't like. For instance, here I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, teenager, and I wanted to lose weight, right? I didn't want to be big and chunky and overweight. I felt like a fat loser. That's what I felt like. So I didn't want to be that anymore. So I thought about in my head, what does that look like? Here are all the things I don't like about what's going on, and all the reasons I want to change, and the reasons why I want to work really hard, lose weight, all that stuff. Okay, so that's my negative vision. Then I had a positive vision. I started becoming obsessed with like losing weight, being in better shape, winning gold medals just like my other teammates were, and being a winner just like my teammates were, having girls be attracted to me, and me being confident about myself, all these different things. So I had these 2 contrasts, right? Right. Like the little devil and the, got a little closer, little devil and the angel sitting on my shoulder. So then, whenever it came time to not want to do the things I know I needed to do, I could look at that. Well, if I don't diet, if I don't work out, if I don't wrestle, if I don't go for the run today, I'm moving closer back to this thing that I don't want to be. If I go do this thing today, if I just do this one run today, and this would be like what I would say to myself, if I just run this morning, I move an inch closer to this thing I really want. Your choice. Right. And for me, that's easy. That's an easy thing. And then after a while, when you start seeing results, positive results, and this is really the thing, when you do jiu-jitsu or when you do really anything, I think you've got to do it until you break past and see some results. Because a lot of times what happens is people fall short of that initial like breaking the seal phase. Like for instance, someone starts a business and or whatever, and then they don't make a buck. And they stop. It's like when they just keep pushing a little bit and make a little bit of money, they're like, oh man, I made some money. Yeah. That's a different, like I know the first time I made $1 on a business, I was like a changed person. Yeah. Right? It's like, wow, like I made $1. I remember in jiu-jitsu, or I remember in wrestling, I remember losing or winning matches, winning my first gold medal. I was like, I won the gold medal. It changed me. I remember when I was trying to lose weight, I remember just simply seeing that scale go down 3 or 4 pounds, whatever it was that first week, I was changed. Yeah. Because that thing that seemed impossible was no longer impossible. Right? I thought I couldn't lose weight. Boom, I was losing weight. So then I start to associate that positive feeling with everything that I was doing, all the working out and everything else. Right. And so for me, when it comes down to jiu-jitsu, you get into jiu-jitsu for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. It's different for everyone, right? What is that reason? Find that reason and have that in your head, and remember that every time you do it, you move a little closer towards it. And if there's a reason why you're doing it because you're trying to change something about yourself, well, then understand that you're moving back towards that, right? Maybe you got beat up and you don't want to feel physically weak. Maybe you want to be stronger. Maybe whatever it is. I don't know what it is. It's always different. Everybody has a really one of my favorite questions to ask people, by the way, when I do seminars and things like that is, why'd you get started? Because everybody always has really cool answers. Because most of the time what drags people into jiu-jitsu is very interesting to me. You know, because it's so wide and the reasons why people do it are so different.
Yeah.
Everything from like, I just got over cancer and I wanted to do something, whatever. There was one guy in Costa Rica who said his life felt like he was spiraling out of control and he wanted to find something to ground him down, to kind of be an anchor so he could be a level-headed person for his daughter. Right? I mean, like all these powerful reasons, right? That have nothing to do with being in shape or choking people out. It has everything to do with like sort of this other stuff. And so understand why you're doing it, and then again understand why that is. And to me, having that sort of those negative and positive visions, because I'll tell you right now, when you read if you read biographies like I do, you start to notice this trend of like successful people. They harness negative energy. Like there's all that guru BS about like be happy, positive all the time. Like we all got negative feelings. Harness those negative feelings towards something productive, because when you read through all these biographies, it's something you notice over and over again. Like these dudes just harness negative energy. Even like I was recently like flipping through that Michael Jordan documentary. Like, and he was talking about he would like think to himself that dude said something negative to him, so then he'd come back and like just crush him in the next game. He's harnessing negative energy, and the dude would be like, I never said anything to him, but in his head he's harnessing a negative power.
You have to motivate himself,
right? Exactly. And so sometimes that negative energy can be a powerful thing, man, to prove people wrong, to prove yourself wrong, whatever, to make things happen. Like it can be a powerful thing. So
yeah, I think the main point that you always say to people about motivation is, what's your goal? Like, why are you doing it? What's your why? And then once you figure that out, I think that you go back to that. Are you moving towards that? Are you moving away from that? Is jiu-jitsu helping you take a step forward into that direction, which you want to, you know? For me, it was like, I kind of was scared of confrontation. I wanted to be, you know, feel a little more confident in, you know, if I had to defend myself. And I also just thought it was something that was really completely out of my realm, always playing team sports. I never thought it was going to be something that I would feel confident doing. You know, so it was just, and I just did it. And because I had some buddies along the way, a battle buddy, like we like to talk about, me and Adam, me and Adam, you know, started training together, and kind of he was a big motivator for me on days, you know, because I'm sure as a white belt, there was days that I was like, shit, I don't want to go, but I know Adam's showing up. I don't want to let him get too far ahead of me, and I'm sure it was
right
the same
there. That was
him.
A negative thing. I don't want to let him. I don't want him to get ahead of me.
No, you don't want to get your buddy to.
I know,
whoop that ass.
but that's kind of like like it's not a bad thing, but it's
sure.
That's not a positive feeling.
No,
I don't want to get left behind, right? But you harnessed it and you made it useful.
Yeah, and it's good because there's somebody there to motivate you and help you kind of. And then you get to a point. It's almost like on a roller coaster. You're going up, and then it gets easier to show up.
Sure.
Because then you're like, oh, this is fun. Now I'm starting to figure it out. I'm starting to get good. Oh, these techniques are working, and it gets more fun.
Well, it also becomes a habit.
Exactly,
you don't have to think about it so much. You just become ingrained. You know.
Yes.
Got a question from Eva. Cool. Absolutely love your comment about being fairly new to jiu-jitsu. It's super helpful and interesting. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, Chew. Another question.
Yeah, we got one here from Country Dan. This is on YouTube. He says, a large part of the community believes that police officers should be mandated to train jiu-jitsu at least to blue belt level. What's your opinion on this, and how would you go about trying to implement it if you were an instructor? So again, that's a kind of a hot button issue right now, right? Like, I know that there's a lot of people that want to defund the police, and there's people that I've even seen abolish the police, and I've seen people that say fund the police. So it's all over the place. I make no judgment as to where you are with it, but what I will say is I'm a person that's around police officers that see crazy stuff that I would never want to see, and so I'm glad that they're out there. But I think that one thing is that we should definitely make them train more often and consistently. I mean, to me, that just makes more sense, you know, especially with the stuff that they're doing, because again, like, police officers most often are taught how to deploy tools, right? Weapons, things like that. I think that, you know, but they put their hands on each other, on people all the time. And this was actually a conversation I was having with a police officer, Jimmy, down in Tennessee, who is a police officer down there. He's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he and I were talking about this, and he said, man, he's like, we don't get a lot of training with our hands, but we're putting our hands on people every day. And he's like, I feel like every police officer should train. This is coming from a guy. And even from like my police officer students up in the city here in Louisville, like they'll tell you like, they're so much more calm and collected and composed in those hand-to-hand situations than people who are not, right? Like for instance, one of my students was telling me about where basically he notices that people don't understand how to control someone. So he does, like when he's holding a person down and he knows he has control of the situation, he's able to apply a very light amount of pressure to keep things down. He just moves people out of the way, like, get out of here, I got this under control, like you don't need to jump on top of the guy, this kind of thing. And so I think that it would be such a beautiful thing for cops to train. And I think that to me it doesn't seem like such a far-fetched idea. Why, if you're going to have someone patrolling, why would it not be a smart idea or even a necessity to have them train hand-to-hand stuff when they're using hand-to-hand? Again, like they have their tasers and they have their guns and all that stuff in which they train with, but like they're constantly grabbing people and all this stuff. I would want them to have more control in those situations. To me, it only makes sense that they need to train, to help the situation improve. And so for me, I would love to see it. I'm kind of waiting for the COVID thing, but I mean, one of the things that me and the gym we're going to do is basically. One of my students is trying to spearhead this thing about maybe getting something set up. But either way, I'm going to set up some discounts or something for police officers so they can come in and train more often. But again, the police officers have to take advantage of that too. But I think I would not be against it being mandated and funded. Like instead of taking funding away from the police, say, listen, you guys probably, because if you talk to a lot of police officers, like it's not like they're just rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
And if you talk to the departments, they're not exactly rolling in the dough. I would like them to see them funded better and have more consistent training and make it mandatory, right? To say, listen, you have to learn how to train better with your hands. So this way you could be more effective, and be more comfortable in situations. Because there's a point of like where we all know this. When you're physically confident in a situation, you're cool, comfortable, calm, collected. When you're not physically comfortable, when you're insecure about what's going on and you don't know if you can take care of the situation, then you make bad decisions. And I can tell you from multiple students of mine who've trained and been in all kinds of altercations where, like one of them in particular, he literally, by the book, guy had a knife, whatever, and he could have legally drawn his weapon and would have been completely fine with it, but he did not because he's a Christian. He's like, man, I don't want to kill this guy, and I wanted to use my jiu-jitsu to stop it. So he put the guy in a Kimura, got his knife out, and removed the knife. Yeah. So I'm like, look, it's a powerful tool that people can use. I think like Jocko was on the podcast with Joe Rogan talking about constant training. Not just you do that training once and that's it. Like constant training all the time.
Well, it becomes your norm. That high anxiety, that high stress, someone holding on to you, grabbing you, fighting someone. You do that every day. Yeah. And so when you do that every day, it gets to be, really the norm. It's kind of like if you want to get better at competing in jiu-jitsu, well, you should compete frequently because you're going to find you're going to be more comfortable in these hectic situations. But we had a student, I don't even remember his name. He's a white belt, maybe 6 months training. Somebody was like stealing something from his store, I think, and he like apprehended him very simply with like Kimura. So like, I think that having a blue belt situation where like most cops train a blue belt is like gives you a good prerequisite. Like this is just like the baseline. To me, it's not
even blue belt. I don't care if you ever get a belt. My thing is if you're going to be a police officer that's out on the street, like that's going to be putting your hands on someone, you have to train. Okay, that's just simple as that.
Here's an idea. What about like just say, like I think this is the case for police officers. They have to like shoot so many number of rounds. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is not necessarily do like a blue belt, I guess, which you brought up a great point, but say like you have to attend or you have to clock this many hours of grappling time or hand-to-hand combat time.
We actually did something years ago where we had a group of police officers come out to train with us at the gym. Yeah. We basically gave them a free class. We said, hey, guys, come out. And so we had them. They did like an in-service type thing about an hour before their actual thing started. They came in and they trained. And again, like they were super receptive to it and everything else. But I think one guy said like he kind of hurt his wrist or something. Yeah. And so then like that looks bad because then you're like, well, what happens if someone gets hurt? And then I'm just being like, it's the same reason why like in the military they have to be careful about it because back in the day I remember I was talking to a guy that's was he was stationed this guy named John, Lieutenant Colonel, and he was saying that the Army was like being a little bit more careful about the combatives tournaments.
Yes.
Because it's like you don't want to beat the hell out of your guys with this physical like one-on-one stuff when then they're not combat ready. They can't go fight because they're injured.
Yeah.
And so one of their worries is like these cops going out there doing jiu-jitsu and they can get hurt, and now they're a man down and they don't have that person to staff.
Take away the variables.
You know. So again, I mean, there's so
safe. There's ways you can train
there
safely.
There is, but there's always going to be a risk. But to me, the risk of someone, you know, again, all of us train that you get injured. You get injured sometimes. It's not very often, and so the likelihood of you getting injured, but to me, of putting you in a better situation to de-escalate, to be in control of situations on the street, to me that's a risk willing to take.
Right.
Personally, that's
I
just
agree.
me. You know?
And just a quick mention to Blue Jitsu. So we had Chris Sizemore on the podcast, and him and Paul Hogan, I believe, they run kind of like they're out of Kentucky, and they just basically do free seminars for police officers, which is a great thing. They're both Chris is a black belt now in jiu-jitsu, and Paul's a brown belt.
Yeah.
And they're both police officers, and they train. They know the benefit. And
they're advocates for getting other police officers.
And I think
they're doing it from within the community. Because, again, me saying, hey, you should train jiu-jitsu versus a police officer who's saying, listen, you should be training. And, by the way, we have classes where you can come train with other police officers so you can get used to what this is like.
Yes.
But, you know, I even thought about this, too. Here's another thing I think is really interesting. Like, this whole crazy stuff on social media, right? You would get, to me, it's like you would get this distorted view of what reality is day to day for most people.
Yeah.
But when we come into the gym, dude, like right now, like seeing people, it's like, I mean, you're with people of different walks, different creeds, different religions, different everything, man. Some guys that, I mean, are like completely polar opposites on the political spectrum, but we're training together and it's all good. Even one of my guys, so we've got a guy that trains with me right now that's he's a retired police officer.
Yep.
Right? And then we have a young guy who's a young black man. They don't see eye to eye on everything. But you know what? He came up to me. He said, dude, I'm so glad this place exists, because him and I had a great conversation. We don't see eye to eye, but he was able to give me his perspective, and that gave me some empathy towards what he's going through and what he sees. And I gave him my perspective, and we were able to kind of come together and respect each other in the middle.
100%.
And beautiful, bro. I mean, I wish like more people had that thing, because when you get through all the BS, and that's what I think is so beautiful about like combat sports, not just jiu-jitsu, but Muay Thai, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, all that stuff. You're battering each other one-on-one, both human. Right? Like, I mean, like you bleed, you sweat the same things, like you're there, like it just cuts through so much junk, right? Yeah. Especially if the environment's good.
Right.
And at least in the gym that we have, we've got a cool environment, and it's just kind of cool to see people to be able to talk and not necessarily hate each other, even if you're a little different. Say, I don't agree with everything you say. I agree with some of the stuff you say. But again, finding some middle ground with one another is a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
so,
you can always learn from those people, too, that have differing opinions.
Right. So I think that even being a police officer, there would be an advantage for you to train where you're going to see all these different wide swaths of people. So again, you're around all these different people all the time. So again, just so you don't become insulated in one thing or the other. Just like, because we can all become insulated in our groups. Even me, I can become insulated in the fact that the mat room is always cool as hell.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's crazy stuff going on that sometimes I have to take notice of.
Yeah, and I think in another way to look at it, if you have a police officer that trains and you're maybe somebody that doesn't agree or is not a big fan of police officers, you get to know these people as people, not police officers, as people. And you're like, oh, man, they're
not a bad guy.
We're teaching each other stuff. He's giving me a tip here. You know, we're taking care of each other on the mat. You know, we're training hard, and I think it builds rapport.
Yeah. Well, when it goes back to this, whenever you try to make large swaths and large generalizations on people, or when someone is telling you to, you know, don't like these people for X or don't like these people for Y, to me, those people are trying to control you. You need to take a step back and have your own original thought and see what you think. Yes. You may agree with it, and that's fine if you do, but it's always good to take a step back and be like, you're trying, like, because to me it makes me think of dogmatic religions, right? If you don't agree with our exact if you don't agree lockstep with everything that we say exactly, we're going to burn you at the stake, heretic. Right? It's like, you know, like, to me it's the same thing. It's like, if you don't agree with every single thing we say, and you see this on both sides, for sure. You don't agree with everything that we say exactly how we say it. Yep. You're bad, whatever. Right. You know? So again, I just don't like it. Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Jason Gray. Pretty big donation. Thank you so much for your support and supporting the podcast.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. Chewy, you got actually, let's do this. I've got a question. This is actually off of also police officer. I believe it's T. Hunts, and he says, I'm a police officer and BJJ practitioner.
Yeah, I was going to get
I'm a bit cautious of going back to the gym because of COVID. Not necessarily for myself, but more so that if I'm exposed, it affects a significant portion of the police department. Do you have any recommendations on how to go about safely practicing? Thanks, brother.
So, This is and see, this is another big topic, right? So I was actually talking to a friend of mine who, I would probably consider myself like, I guess if I had to say it was a political argument, I would have to say I'm probably a little bit more right of center.
Yeah.
Center, right of center, maybe. I'm more for like just more liberties and things like that. My buddy's left of center, and he's not against liberties or anything like that, but just his view on things, right? And we both agreed like this. And this guy is also a doctor. Like he's like a doctor that deals with like vaccines and immunizations and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this guy's not a dumb guy. He knows a hell of a lot more than I do. And his thing is he's like, look, we can't shut everything down forever, right? Like we understand that we don't know everything about the darn thing, but we definitely need to protect some people in the population more than others, and we need to do some stuff. And again, people will fight this idea, whatever. I don't like the idea of simply like someone. I mean, so again, I'll get into it. If I would like, we have a police officer that trains with us. I have a couple police officers that train with us, and I let them come to class. I'm like, look, man, like I'm not. If you step out of your house and you do anything, to me, it's like you accept that risk. I'm okay with that. Like that's just, to me, that's what it is. It's like you accept the risk. Yeah. It's like if you go out and go about your day-to-day life and like whatever. I mean, that's just never in our lives are things 100% safe. Yes. You might die in a car wreck. You might, go out and get flu or something else. You could be exposed to carcinogens and that affect your body later on. I mean, there's a million things that can happen to you day-to-day life. Yeah. Like the idea that life is somehow like safe is an illusion, right? Even like the idea that like society is 100% safe all the time is an illusion. Yeah. Right? It can break down. It can fold. It has in the past in history. But if I had a police officer that wanted to train and he was worried about it, I would just say, I mean, I'm not against it. If there's something that makes you apprehensive, then I would say go follow your gut. And this is my thing. I don't criticize anybody on any side of the argument. So whether you think we should all be locked up and whatever else, that's fine. That's your thought. Whether it's people that like call people sheep for wearing a mask, I don't agree with that. But hey, whatever, it's your thought, whatever. Yeah. But I think that again, if you don't want to be outside, whatever, just stay inside. No big deal. But if you're willing to take the risk, I think that we should allow people to take certain risks. And so again, with a police officer, if you wanted to train, I'd say you can come train. Again, if you don't want to because you're afraid, don't train. But again, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and maybe some ways to, even if you decide you want to train but minimize your risk, you might
get
want
tested.
Yeah,
get tested on a regular basis.
Yep. And the other thing is, I think try to maybe say, all right, I've got a group of other people that want to train around the same time. So to minimize, if you're like, man, I got to go and train, get smaller groups and try to maybe even like work with your coach or your gym to see if maybe you guys can get like a special time.
Yeah, I know.
Or just a certain number of people to train.
I have a few students right now that are they bought some mats and they're training in small groups of like 4 or 5 people. Yeah, and that's fine. And they have they try stuff that they're working on and everything else, and they're just kind of waiting for everything to settle down, and that's cool. We got guys that come train in the gym. That's cool. I'm getting tested regularly right now just to be on the safe side. So like just to make sure, so like I'm just kind of checking my everything else. I'm not one of those people that thinks it's nothing. You know what I mean? But again, I just think that in the end, life has never been 100% safe. Yeah. And again, it's just not.
Well, just like injuries are always there.
Injuries are always there.
Like there was a question, I don't know who asked it, but they were like, "How do you deal with the risk of injury?" For me personally, that was a huge thing as being like, because you're a physical therapist. I use my hands. My hands are everything for me, and it's just like, man, look at the good, the bad. First of all, have good training partners. Have a good gym, solid gym. Have really people that understand Jiu-Jitsu a little better. The same thing with leg locks. We had Dean Lister. We talked to Dean Lister on the podcast. Yeah. And, Dean was talking about, you guys had talked about leg locks, how injury risk. Once you took that stigma, that fear out of training leg locks, and you did it in a controlled manner, less injuries.
The more education, the more education that we have with leg locks in the gym, the less injuries we've had. Period. Yep. Like I remember, because we didn't used to do leg locks as much, and part of it was because I had bought into the BS myth that somehow leg locks are far more dangerous than regular stuff. Yeah. Then started learning how to do them, learning how to tap, because again, one of the misconceptions is you're going to get everything tore up. If you know when to zig and when to zag properly, and if you know that, like, listen, if I catch your heel in a heel hook, I'm not going to crank it. We don't crank in the gym. Like, I'm not going to bust your stuff.
Give me that gaze, that stone cold
I'm going to
stare.
look at you stone cold and say, you know I got you. But no, like, but even like with an armbar, I don't take, like, if I have a partner in an armbar, I'm not gonna pop his arm in training. Right? I'm gonna hold it and be like, I got you. Like, you know what I mean? And even for me, that's like a test in, like, can I control this dude? Like, can I make sure that I've got like 1/1000 to it? You're not getting out of here, you know? So yeah, I think that, you know, Dean Lister talked about that. And, you know, as far as injuries go, here's what I say. I say this all the time. I've met people that are like 30 years old and they are broken, right? They've never done anything. They don't do anything in their life. They're broken. And then I've got people that are 30 years old and they do all kinds of stuff and they've got problems too. You're going to rust out or you're going to wear out. Like, you don't get to keep this body forever. You got it for a limited time. I would rather use it and have some cool-ass experiences with it than, like, look back and go, man, you know what? I'm getting ready to kick the bucket. Doctor says I've got about 24 hours to live, and I've got great knees and shoulders, and everything feels fantastic. I want to be crawling across the finish line of my life, be, like, ready to go. Like, just, I'm ready to be put down. I don't want to be here anymore, you know?
He's every bit of juice you got.
To me, to me, like, when you're talking about life is, it's not about just the quantity.
Yeah,
it's the quality of what you did with it. Like, you get this chance to live. Like, I don't want to like safeguard myself to squeak out an extra 2 years at the end, right, when I'm old and broken. I want to be like, man, I had a hell of a time back in the day. Like, I feel it today, but you know what, man? I like what I did. You know, I did not get controlled by fear.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think about this too, man. Like, tomorrow you could do everything right, and tomorrow you could die of cancer. Like, you don't know. Like, you could die, so you get hit by a car. You know, like something bad could happen to you tomorrow, and it could all be over.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you don't want to look back and think, you know what, man, I really wish I would have done that. But I didn't. Right. Because again, you may not live to be 80. You may not live to be 90 to have those nasty needs. You might be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So take advantage of what you got today. You know, and so for me, as far as injuries go, they're going to happen, and they're going to happen whether you train or not. One of the biggest things I would say is, train for your goals. So if you're not a person that's trying to be the next world champion, don't train like a world champion. Drives me bonkers. You see these young guys or even older guys would be like, you know, in their 40s, and they're watching, like, you know, the training camps at Atos. I'm like, those are like dudes that are doing this full time. This is all they do.
Yep.
Like, you just got done working 8 hours today, and now you're going to go try to train like this. Like, dude, ease up. Like, it's just not it's not in the deck for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with, you can still train hard, you can still learn technique, but you don't need to train like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And again, if you try to, you're going to get yourself hurt.
Yeah.
Even taking rest days. If your body's broken down, take a day off.
Yeah.
Let your body rest. It's screaming at you saying, bro, let me sleep today. Just let me take it off. Let's just go for a walk today. Let me go for a bike ride. Just not jiu-jitsu today.
It's every morning for me because I go to 6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
So it's every morning. Who's it? David B. Commons. Thanks for the donation.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. What is that little thing, that red thing?
Where?
It's like
it's like they're, I don't know.
It looks like a donkey.
Let me look for your question.
Like a little thing or something. I don't know. It was like the red one there. See that? Like at the top. Go up a little bit up. At the very top. Thanks, by the way, Dillard. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, that thing. What is that?
That's
oh, it's like a little monster.
Yeah, the little monster thing stays up.
Okay.
But I don't know. I do have another one if you don't have one.
I got one.
All right, let's see it.
I'll ask you this one first. Since you've been asking me questions,
all right.
This one's from Kaylin. She says, if you could go back and tell your white belt self a pivotal piece of advice, what would it be? So white belt self, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, man. I would probably tell myself to slow down a little bit.
What do you mean slow down?
I think that when I started, you see these black belts and you see like blue belts and purple belts. You're like, oh my God, I want to be a blue belt. I want to be a purple belt, whatever it is. I would have told myself to slow down and enjoy the ride a little more. Enjoy each step in the journey a little bit more.
Yeah.
That would be it. Just to kind of appreciate, every training session a little bit more.
Yep.
And I think the other thing is not to compare myself. I would always look at what other people are doing, their accomplishments. So not compare myself to others. And know this is solely my path, my speed that I'm going to get to where I'm going to get to. I know where I'm going, and I know I'm going to get there. It just may not be as quick as some people. Life throws things at you, and so yeah, just don't look at other people, like their accomplishments. Kind of don't compare yourself to others.
It's hard though, because
100%.
Well, I mean, it's hard because you got to think about, like, first off, like, we are we do compare ourselves, whether we want to or not. We all do. But even like when you think about, like, one of our things is like humans, right? If we were in a tribal culture, we would have had to prove ourselves to the tribe, right? I think about this because, like, for instance, when you would look at old tribal cultures, they would take the men and women both had different rituals.
Yeah.
Where, you know, with the boys, for instance, they would be taken out by the men in the tribe, and these men would show them what it means to be a man. They would typically do this at a certain age when they're getting around puberty.
Right.
And they would, like, basically they would have to prove themselves. These young boys would have to do something kind of scary, sometimes dangerous, to prove themselves. Listen, you don't get to be a man in the society until you do this thing.
Right.
Right? You have to have this rite of passage. Right. And so, you know, there's this proving ability, this thing we have to prove ourselves to the tribe. You know, you can't just show up and be like, I'm happy where I'm at. Like, you got to, like, I want to be in the pecking order a little bit. Even with me back with wrestling, I wanted to be able to be one of the tough guys, one of the top guys, because I wanted to prove myself to the guys that were in there with me, you know? You know, going back to me, I was just kind of building off what you said.
Yeah.
But going off of what we were talking about, so about pivotal piece of advice, what would it be? I think about this all the time, and, you know, the first thing is that I always think to myself is like, well, I learned a lot from screw-ups, so I wouldn't really want to change it because it worked out all right. The one thing I would say, and here's honestly, this is really not necessarily jiu-jitsu related, but it is. So when I got into jiu-jitsu, I had all these different goals, right? And I stuck to those goals for, you know, a number of years, and then I got into a relationship with a woman who kind of derailed me for a little bit. And this is nothing to say bad about women or anything, just that one person. We just didn't work out very well. But what ended up happening is, you know, I was focused on competing, fighting, and all that. I don't know why. That was just, which I've got a good question we'll get to in a second. But okay. I just liked doing this stuff as soon as I got into it. And you know, she kind of nudged me to do all these other things, like, let's buy a home, let's buy this, let's buy that. Before I know it, I'm strapped in debt, and you know, I'm no longer able to be as free as I wanted to be with my my lifestyle, where I could just kind of do different stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I wish I wouldn't have done that, because it took me about two and a half years to dig myself out of that. And that kind of took a nice chunk from, like, you know, 22 to 23, 24. And so, honestly, going back to it, I would say, like, stay your course. Like, don't, like, make sure that you put your dreams and your goals first.
Yeah.
And then once you find someone that maybe you want to marry or whatever, then you can alter those. But otherwise, stay your course. Which I was good about doing for a long time, but it just didn't work forever, and I got kind of derailed for a bit. But that took me a while, and that was a mistake that I learned.
You learn from it, right?
You did.
You're like, man, I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, you learn from it. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where if I had to give myself some piece of advice, I would have told myself to avoid that situation, so that I could have continued competing more and doing those things along the way, when I was doing that.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, too, I would say, you realized what you didn't want out of life, or what kind of life you didn't want to live.
This is true. No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so hard because, like, you look at the mistakes and you're like, everything that you have, all the good stuff, is only possible because you screwed stuff up. You know, and as much as we don't like the negative stuff, it's typically that sour that makes the sweet possible later on. Yeah. There was one here that came in.
Thanks to D. Carrison, by the way, for supporting us.
D. Carrison, thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
I made it a little bigger on the screen. And guys, really quick, if anybody's kind of trolling the comments, please, like, we're not really actively checking it out. Let us know in the comments there if somebody's really kind of being not the nicest, and
we should terminate them.
Yeah.
One from Ty. Ty says, moment you realized jiu-jitsu was something you wanted to do forever. Was it right away or something that took time or a certain event? So I'm going to say it like this. It was interesting, Ty. The very first day I did jiu-jitsu, I was like, I love this. I can't explain it to you. It was just one of those things where, and it wasn't just jiu-jitsu, it was grappling in general. I remember my first day in wrestling. I was like, I loved it. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I felt lost and stupid, but man, I loved it. It was fun. I loved the environment. I loved being around a group of people like that. I just loved it. And then when I remember my very first day of jiu-jitsu, I came in with my two buddies from high school because I was too chicken to go by myself. So I had to, like, get two of my buddies to go with me because I was real nervous. Go in there, train, learned a ton, got my butt beat all over the place. I remember I rolled with Mike Colley, who's one of my black belts now. He choked me out with a no-gi Ezekiel. My coach knee-barred me. Yeah. I got just smashed all over the place. But when it was all over, I remember going home and, like, smiling. I was like, this was the coolest thing ever, and I fell asleep at like 9:30. which was like really like out of sorts for me back then when I was that young. You know, I used to stay up till like super late playing video games. But from the moment I started, I just enjoyed it, and it was just like I know it sounds weird, but like from the moment I did it, I just wanted to do it. There was really, and I've never really had a time where I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. It's like I like doing it. There's times where I'm not as enthusiastic as other times, but for the most part, I just always want to do it.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of. I never saw myself doing anything like it, and I remember my first class as a white belt. What are you laughing at?
So,
oh, they're talking about Joe. Joe.
Okay, just you go ahead and do your thing.
Right.
I'll tell them about Joe in a second.
First, let me. There was a really cool thing that somebody said on there. I feel like it needs to be mentioned really fast. This is from Anas Alami. He said, "Hey Chewy, you're one of the main reasons I started martial arts in the first place, along with Joe Rogan, Ramsey Dewey, Icy Mike, etc. Just wanted to tell
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, man. Everything changed for me. I went from an alcoholic, suicidal, and obese to relatively fit, satisfied with my life, and overall much healthier physically, mentally."
That's fantastic.
It's pretty powerful.
And you did that. You did that, man. Like that. And again, like, you know, I'm happy to have helped. I'm glad other people have helped you, inspire you along the way. But again, be proud of that because you did that, and that's powerful.
Now everything I'm going to say is going to be absolutely meaningless because that was amazing. No. So as far as training, like knowing if you're going to do it forever. Initially, like I did jiu-jitsu. I had like my first class was just myself, and it was actually Dave Riley, one-on-one. It was me and him, and Adam was actually there watching. And I was getting these positions that I saw in the UFC, and I was like, "This is so cool." I just had this really creepy grin on my face. I'm sure the whole time I had this creepy grin with another man mounting me, and I left, and I was like, "Oh, that was the coolest thing." It was one of the coolest. It was so different, so out of my comfort level. And then I just, once you get to a point you've put so much time into it, you're like, well, there's no turning back now. I've already put all this time in. You know, I've already invested. It's like I talked about the little roller coaster analogy. I've already gotten to that point. I was like, well, it just kind of gets a little smoother. It's a habit. It's just part of who you are. And then you realize sometimes when you take time off, like right now, or due to injury, you realize what you miss, how much a part of it is, and how much of a more, for me, I'm a more patient person. I have an outlet that's healthy. I get to see my friends. You know, as we grow older too, it's like we don't keep contact with so many people. It's like we lose touch, but this is a way, you know, as life gets in the way, but we always see these same people in jiu-jitsu. We always touch base with them, and connect with them. And they're like, become your friends, your brothers, your sisters, you know? So,
bro, I was talking to my buddy Drew about this morning. I enjoy people who train more than I enjoy most people, because people that train, people that have done something, like people that do hard stuff, I just enjoy them. I don't really have a lot to conversate about with people. I mean, I can if I want to, you know, because I can talk with anyone, but I genuinely enjoy talking to people that do difficult stuff on a regular basis, because the conversations are so much better. The conversations, the relationships, the interactions, I enjoy them much more. By the way, guys, when it comes to old Joe Clark is my business partner, and he's my friend. Like he's actually been training for a while, and he trains off and on jiu-jitsu from time to time. He's actually pretty good. He did one tournament as a white belt. He went out there and he won, like, I think 4 matches that day, maybe 3 matches, I can't remember. But he ended up like winning a really tough match against like a tough wrestler. He and that back then he was like 150 pounds.
Joe is good too.
Yeah.
He's good.
He was tough, man. He's scrappy. So and Joe has these ginormous legs. They're absurd, and
he's got goiters on his quads.
They're as big as my leg, or my waist, excuse me. But I remember he would go to the no-gi classes, and sometimes the MMA classes wearing like the Valley Tudo style shorts. And I remember like these dudes would be like, "Oh my god,
I don't want that guy between his legs.
I don't want that dude around." But no, Joe always did this. So if you guys ever watch some of the things, Joe will always go in there. When do I get my blue belt? It's become kind of a running gag.
Joe, like when he wore gi pants, it would be like the Incredible Hulk, you know, with like the really tight pants and like the little fraying at the bottom. I don't even know how he fit in gi pants.
Yeah, I don't think he could now. He'd have to get like his top would be like A3, his bottoms would be like A6. Have to get him hemmed.
It's crazy. And the man can lift some weight. Let me tell you, incredible.
Yeah, Joe and actually, funny thing, I'll tell you guys more about it later on. It'll be on the channel. Joe and I have both decided to. I mean, neither one of us is like fat, right? But like, we were just like, man, because when I first started training, I was getting ready for fights and I was like pretty lean, and then Joe was getting ready for bodybuilding and he was pretty lean. But we kind of just haven't really done it, got a little older, but we were like, let's get lean. So we're like, so we're going to do a thing on the YouTube where we're going to kind of like do like a little thing every Friday or so and document us kind of doing our workouts, different foods we're eating and stuff like that. And we're going to document the process of us getting a little bit more trim, a little bit leaner and meaner. So we'll keep you guys updated on that.
Y'all have to do like square off afterwards. And
something like that.
Show your muscles.
Show our muscles.
Yeah. Chewy, this is an interesting question. I don't know if you have one.
Go ahead.
So this one it's an interesting one because it's kind of can be applied to a lot of, you don't want to be seen as like someone that's just like telling the coach stuff, but you may have a bad vibe from people. So it's from Cigar Barad 7. He says, I'm a new student, and while rolling, other students are establishing dominance over me. I try to tap out the right time, but there's one guy who won't leave me because he wants to complete his whole move and technique. It has just been my second week, and I don't have good feelings about this guy. What should I do?
So he's read the part again? He's tapping what?
Basically, like maybe this guy's just like not letting up on submissions. He's only 2 weeks in. He's basically saying, I try to tap out at the right time, but there's one guy who won't leave me. He says, leave me. So I don't know if that's but basically it's like maybe a guy's just kind of messing with him and
so
two pulling submissions too tight.
So 2 things on it is, one is talk to your coach. Like your coach can give you the right direction, because it's always so hard. I've seen people where people sort of took things negatively in the beginning when really there wasn't anything negative going on. It was just their perception of it because they were new.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets rough, right? But there could be other things going on. The one thing I would say is, one, you don't want to pre-tap. Pre-tapping is where basically where maybe you don't even have the rear naked sunk in yet. There's not pressure on there. You could probably still fight for another second or two and your hand comes up ready to just start tapping. Don't pre-tap. You want to fight the whole time and then you tap when you have to tap. But the other thing is, again, talk to your coach. If there's something that makes you feel unsafe, just get clarity, and he can talk to the person, or he can give you clarity as to why you shouldn't be worried. Yeah. And again, that's what they're there for. And again, ultimately, I know that sometimes, like I've had this, even me, like this guy who's like this kind of what I guess most people probably think I'm a nice guy, right? I think I consider myself a nice guy, but. Nice guy. I've had students before that were newer that had trouble approaching me because they felt awkward about asking something, even though I literally do this daily, like for videos and stuff like that. People had trouble asking questions, and I was telling guys, like, look, if you have trouble asking, or if you need to ask a question, I'm here for you. And most coaches, maybe not all, because there's some coaches that suck, right? But most coaches share that sentiment. They're there to help you. That's what they're there to do, because they remember being the new guy. They remember sucking. They remember not knowing what the hell to do. So if you have a question, even if you think it's stupid, right? Most coaches aren't going to think it's stupid. Just ask them. Just get clarity. And again, that's what you're paying them for. They are your guide in this thing. And again, I always like to help out and give people different perspectives, because I think it's always good to hear different ideas. But ultimately, if you have a question that's going on right then and there in your gym, always feel free to ask your coach, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, and you can maybe even mention, sometimes people don't know that if they're inexperienced, that they're cranking on a submission. So if that's what's happening, say, hey man, can you just let up when I tap? But yeah, like you said, that's a great point, the pre-tapping, like, because you almost like don't let the person get in the position where you kind of complete
because they want to, they want to complete the submission. So I wasn't sure if that was going on.
Right.
Got one here from William Webb. This one is in the YouTube community page. He says, knowing that you're a fan of deep breathing, what's your take on the Wim Hof method or similar styles? I think Wim Hof method breathing is fine. Again, what you want to think about with breathing is, breathing can elicit a particular effect on your body, right? So like, you can kick on your sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic being the one that's like, let's get after it, let's fight, let's go, let's jump in an ice bath and do crazy stuff. That's your sympathetic. Parasympathetics being like the one, rest and digest, cool down. So for instance, Wim Hof breath is great for doing something like where you're over-oxygenating the system, you're kicking on that sympathetic nervous system, and you're going to go, let's go dive into some cold water, right? Get your body ready.
Trying to charge your body.
It's a charge, right? You're going to charge your body up to do that. On the other hand, if you want to do deep breathing that's focused on especially the exhale, right? The exhale is important. That's going to slow things down, and that is going to put us in a different state. So for instance, at nighttime, typically at nighttime when I'm done training, I'll do breathing that's focused on an extra long exhale. And basically that's meaning that I'm going to end up putting more carbon dioxide in the system, which then is going to get me to relax a little bit. So for instance, where the Wim Hof breath, most of you guys know it's that like, that really like that locomotion type breath, building up that charge. You can do other types of breath where you can do like a 4-second count with like a 4-second inhale, like hold for a second, and then when you exhale, go really like as long as you can, and then when you're done, like it just slows you down, and it's a really effective thing. So, you know, even like sometimes if I go, like, and this is no joke, if I get up in the middle of the night and sometimes I have to like use a restroom or something, and I sit down, sometimes I have trouble going back to sleep. I'll just do that breathing. I'll do really slow inhale and a slow exhale. But I'll do that after training, and it's wonderful for slowing the body down. Even during stretching, it's great, like to do those long breathing, because it helps relax the nervous system. And a lot of times I can get into these deep stretches from just doing the deep breathing. So there's all kinds of different breathing. There's holotropic breathing, which will give you some trippy stuff going on. Yeah. So I mean, breathing is such an interesting thing because it's something that's essential for living, that you can do consciously or unconsciously, right? You can do it or it can be done to you. It just kind of goes back and forth. Yeah. And so, you know, it's a neat thing, but, you know, most meditative practices are centered around a breath. And again, with the Wim Hof stuff, I think Wim Hof's breathing is effective. Obviously, he's shown it to be effective, and some of the crazy stuff that he can do, and he can teach it to other people. So again, super effective.
Yep. Awesome. You got some more stuff, Chew?
I was going to look and see if anybody that was on with us today threw out anything, because I didn't want to leave you guys out.
Let's go. We'll start at the top here.
Let's scroll through the top and see what we got here today. So we're going to go through your guys' questions now.
On YouTube.
On the YouTubes. The people that are right here live, right?
Let's see if we find anything. And I will probably, Chewy, how do you want to do the giveaway while we're looking? Is there any way we want to do it? We got 5. We're going to give away some of these Jugo card decks.
We got some Jugo card decks. We're going to give away...
we're going to give away Epic Roll, Rash Guard, the new one that Matt's got with all the Urban Legend stuff going on. So.
Yeah, and then we're going to give you guys like some access to one of the digital products where you guys can check out some stuff.
And if you're on... should we call their names out? Is that how we should do it? Or we'll just message them.
Probably message them. So we got all the questions.
If you can get the YouTube, we'll pick.
I've got all the ones here.
Yep. Are we gonna pick a few randomly? Is that how we're gonna do it?
Right now?
Well, no, we can do it whenever.
I figure we just pick some of these people here that are here.
MXSTIC. Do you know any good online sources to begin learning at home? The Chewjitsu YouTube channel.
Man, yeah. I mean, dude, like, you know. There's so many different things.
A lot.
There's so much. I mean, it depends on like where you're at personally, but with you being online, I mean, you have so much stuff at your disposal, dude.
What about here, Chewy? What about this? What about how would somebody maybe simplify or maybe like deduce what they should study? Because you almost get, now it's a point where you're getting overwhelmed by
get on jiu-jitsu and put in like white belt BJJ, white belt techniques, white belt ideas, something like that, and you'll find stuff for white belts and brand new people.
Human Jiu-Jitsu is hilarious. He always has memes.
Yeah.
Andrew with the memes. Let's see. And if you guys have questions, send them. Send them down there. We'll get to a few of them. So have you heard about this right here?
No.
So I think Henzo made some comments or something that people think are. This is any comments on Henzo Gracie's recent awful-looking tweets. I haven't seen them. I don't know, but I think what I heard was that it was like anti-Semitic or there were some things that were said. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But he's got, man, everyone that's close to him, and one guy that he's an Israeli guy, you know, who is like very close under Henzo was like, man, he's nothing been. So the gist is people say things sometimes out of frustration. Nobody's perfect.
Here's the deal.
But Henzo is. Like, seems like one of the nicest dudes, very intense. But man, like everybody that's close to him that knows him well, knows that he's just a really genuinely nice guy, and it's very supportive and helps bring people up. Yeah. A lot of people he's helped.
Man, here's the thing. And this is something I've been doing since the COVID stuff started, right? I don't really judge anybody by their social media tweets very much, like because again, it's just so many people like knee-jerk reaction throw stuff up. You know, they'll say incredibly crazy things or mean things or whatever, just like by knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. So I don't know what he posted because I haven't seen it, so I can't make an assessment. But I don't really judge people too much on the social media stuff because so much of it's completely fake. You know what I mean? Like even like I know people like hate on a lot of times with Gordon Ryan.
Sure.
They're like, oh, the guy's whatever he said, or he's always shit talking, whatever. Then I've also seen that dude literally like go out of his way at a tournament to like take a picture with someone. You know, so it's like, I don't know, man. Maybe he is that guy. Maybe that's just a persona. I don't know. You know, so I don't really pay attention to it too much. And again, as I was telling you guys, I don't hang out on social media as much as some people might think. I like to talk to people in the confines of what I'm doing, and I'll do my own research on like the happenings of what's going on that day or what's going on around the time. But I don't really like to I don't really watch people's social media like a hawk.
Yeah,
you know?
And look at the consistency and like, if people are really that way, or like they'll alienate themselves from people.
Sure.
Like, so the guy that I'm talking about that I actually spoke with was Haim Ghazali. He's like under Henzo, and he had nothing but amazing things to say about Henzo, and he's someone that's very close to him that's fought in Bellator before, and his son's fought in Bellator. His son actually got like the fastest leg lock submission, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what
yeah.
he said. I know that like sometimes in jiu-jitsu, like we sometimes have a humor that would not be considered PC by today's standards.
And who knows what people say out of frustration?
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know. So I shouldn't even be talking about it because I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But
I don't know.
I didn't know if you knew anything about it. Let's do this one. You want to do a little Masvidal or Usman? That's going down tonight. Well, or not tonight. I'm sorry. It's going down Saturday night. Man, so Masvidal stopped at like on the way to Fight Island and got pizza. Stopped to get pizza. I'm sure he's like way overweight too. I mean,
way underweight
or overweight. I'm sure.
Why would he be overweight?
Well, he's stopping to eat pizza, but I think he hasn't even started cutting weight yet. Oh. So that's what I think was the big thing. Like,
I figured he'd be underweight.
No, heck no. He just took the fight on 6 days' notice.
Oh, I don't know, man.
You got to
Masvidal's one of those dudes. He's such a gamer, and it's hard to ever bet against him.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's hitting a good streak. But man, Usman's good.
Dude, he doesn't stop. Usman's super duper, like, just, I mean, he fought Colby Covington, who's got really, really good wrestling and very good cardio. And Usman's kind of interesting to me about him. He's got really bad knees. Like, he can't even go up the stairs.
What?
He was on Joe Rogan. He talked about his knees being terrible. Like, he has a hard time. But once he gets, man, this tells you how much mental.
Once he gets moving?
Once he gets on the mats, once he gets,
Why are his knees so bad?
From wrestling. He messes his knees up so terribly. Like, he said he can't even go up the stairs normally. Like, he has a hard time. And so that guy can fight like that with just bum knees.
He's going to be fighting and get a knee replacement.
Oh, I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure.
Man, I don't know. As far I'll just go with Usman. You can go with who?
Oh, I'm going Usman.
Okay.
I don't think. See, I think he's going to do a decision. I think he's going to beat him up for 5 rounds.
I mean, Masvidal's an amazing fighter, though.
He's very, very durable.
Masvidal's been around for a long time. I mean, that dude's been around since back in the old Kimbo days. Remember that?
Yep. 2003 was his first fight, actually. Yeah, that's funny. Let's see.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, read that, Chew.
So, D. Carrison, he says, I'm a police officer in Australia, and I just started jiu-jitsu. Go back up here.
Sorry.
After studying your Get a Grip program, I was confident enough to subdue a suspect after a long foot chase using an empty hand control. That's awesome, bro. And again, there you go. Like, you're a police officer that's out there, like, using jiu-jitsu to, subdue someone in, the most efficient and what I would say controlled way possible. That's effective. That's awesome. Yeah,
and like that, it's all about the grips. That goes to everything. Like, it's all about the grips, baby.
It's funny. It's like I remember. Here's a good story for you guys. So my students, they read my emails. In my emails, they're one part fun and story and whatever, and then I'll talk about the different things that I have going on. And we were at a tournament last year, and one of my white belts was like, he was just like making a joke the whole time. He's like, "Hey, Chewy, you could use that one of your emails for get a grip," and he just kept saying it.
Yeah.
And then the next time I rolled him, I was like grabbing his arms and stuff, and I'm like, "You see why they get a grip? Why I'm so like this is why I'm so like funky about it, because like it's just one of those things where if you can control someone's hands, man, they can't really do much.
It's everything.
If I can control your grips, if you can't get the grips you want, and I get the ones I want, I control everything."
Here's a good question, and we had Ben Fowler was a great example of this. Justin Popovici, he's asking, "Hey Chewy, I've been meaning to join a BJJ school. I need it very bad. I keep getting anxiety about it and putting it off. I live in a small city, but I'm not sure if we have any good BJJ gyms."
So Justin, check your city, See if you got some gyms. I'm sure most gyms. Here's a beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu. There's a bit of a self-regulatory nature of it, where if like you got some like scuzzy dude that's like out there doing stuff that's not good, usually they end up getting spotted pretty quickly, right? So most of the time the gyms are decent gyms. Go and try the free class. As far as the anxiety goes, bro, that is just fear of the unknown. That's not a real fear, because what's going to go on when you go in, there's probably going to be nothing but good stuff. Great example of one of my students, and I've had multiple of these, but he's like the best one. He's a brown belt now. Ben came to the gym. It took him like 6 months to get into the door. He said he would come up to drive in, and he was really overweight at the time. He would drive up, park his car, look at the on sign that we used to have flashing, and then he would drive off. Come back, another day and do it. And he would do this back and forth, wanting to come in, and then eventually he finally got into the gym and started training. And again, his regret was not starting. It was not starting sooner. And so what I would say is, man, if you have that calling to go do something, anxiety is not necessarily, a lot of times it's not a bad thing. To me, a lot of times when I get anxious about doing something, it usually is a good thing. Like again, there's times where anxiety kicks up for bad reasons. I'm not saying that. But like when you're making the decision to do something that you want to do, and you get anxiety from it, a lot of times that's just you pushing into the unknown, right? And that's an okay thing. So I would definitely encourage you to go in, check out the gyms that are in your area, and just take the leap. And again, if you go in and do the free class and you don't like it, then you don't have to keep training. But more than likely, you'll probably find some good stuff.
Yeah, he did post that he called a 5-star school in my city, and they weren't very helpful, which is okay. Just
schedule it. You don't. Exactly. So here's the thing: you never know. Like here's a great example. There's been businesses that I have not gone to at first because of a bad experience that I had with like a frontline worker,
right,
or a just a guy that was having a bad day, and then I went back and did them, and then went back to them again. It was amazing. So what I would say is, call and schedule it, and again, just figure it out, and then get in there and try it out, and then again test it out. Oh, and there's Jimmy. There we go. So that
Jimmy
was
Hayes.
Yeah. So we're going through the old messages that you guys had, and that's Jimmy. Jimmy's he was the dude that I was talking about. He was a police officer, and so when all the stuff was going down, I was asking him, because again, I don't want to hear what people have to say that have never done the job. I want to know what people that have done the job and have more experience have to say, because to me that's a better read as to like what do you guys actually go through, and especially as a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And so he gave me some lowdown on it.
Yeah, and he said, Jimmy said, police officer can get scared or nervous during confrontations. If their hand-to-hand doesn't work, they go straight to weapons.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. Like, again, because if you're confident, if you're physically confident, you can take care of stuff. One of my students, I'll just call him Rando.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he was telling me about a street fight he got into where literally, man, like this dude like is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and he was able to keep it hand to hand. Never had to draw his weapon, even though he probably could have and would have been okay, because the guy's literally trying to like kill him. And he was able to take care of the situation in the most controlled way possible. And again, a lot of that was because he's an MMA fighter. He's fought. He's very comfortable with like having to deal with the hand to hand situation. And even when he took the guy to the hospital to get the guy checked out, the guy apologized. They're there, and he said he dropped the charge. Like, he could have charged him with assaulting an officer or something. He charged him with like something that was a much more minor charge, like disorderly conduct or something, because he was just like, a dude just being stupid. He's making a bad decision, and like, again, And I think that when you are secure in who you are with physically with all this stuff, I think you also have nothing to prove. You don't have you don't have nothing to prove to anybody else. And so I just think it's a good thing for most people to do. I think that anything like this, I mean, this is why old tribal societies and stuff, they would have these kinds of wrestling and fighting and things like that would be part of they'd be part of their rituals and their normal stuff.
Yeah, everybody
kind of took part in them.
Chewy, would you ever do any BJJ camps over the world? Greetings from Russia, the motherland.
The motherland. That's where you're from.
Yeah, I'm actually from now. Well, it was Russia when I lived there. Belarus now. Okay. Yeah.
So it was the Soviet Union back then.
Yeah, USSR.
Soviet Union.
Yeah.
I would do a seminar anywhere.
Cool,
I would do a jiu-jitsu camp anywhere. I don't. Yeah. I have no qualms concerned. I eventually want to get over to England. Because I think it would be cool as hell to go over to what would be my motherland. Because I'm northern. I'm basically English, Irish, and like northern European. Like that's what I am. I'm like
basic white dude.
I'm a white guy.
Yep.
Like there's a little like I think my 23andMe said I had like a little Scandinavian in me, but basically it's like all the stuff there: Northern Europe, Germany, Scandinavia, then English and Irish.
Oh, all right. 9-month white belt. Thanks for all you do, Chewy. You have great views. Wait, sorry. Thank you for
Yeah,
that, Robin.
appreciate you, Robin.
That wasn't the one I was going to read.
Okay.
But thank you. So Garen says, about a year ago, I got really into BJJ, bought a really expensive gi and everything. Month in, work schedule changed, couldn't make it to class. Now I'm embarrassed to go back. How do I get over it?
Why on earth would you be embarrassed? Like something got in the way, bro. Like, I mean, here when I first started, I trained like hardcore for about a month and a half. I bought at the time it was an expensive gi. It was about $95.
The vitamins and minerals.
Vitamins and minerals gi.
There
Like
it is.
it wasn't even like the basic white or blue gi. It was a blue gi with all kinds of patches and all kinds of cool stuff. It was like you know, looked like a damn NASCAR driver.
That thing was cool.
It was a cool gi. I still have it hanging up in the gym. But you know, I had some time off, and when I came back, I was nervous because, you know, I was just nervous about getting back into it because I was like, man, I'm going to be out of shape and all this stuff like that. But man, I was excited. My excitement for training completely outweighed any nervousness. And I guarantee if you really think about it, again, here's a good thing you can do. Ask yourself what the hell you're nervous about. I do this like with all kinds of stuff. Like if I'm getting ready to be nervous about something, or if I have to make a big decision that I'm nervous about, I'll actually ask myself, or even write in a journal if it's a really big decision, like, what am I nervous about? What are you nervous about, bro? Like, what are you worried about going back? You obviously things worked out, and you're so excited now that your job's changed that you want to go back. So obviously there was a good experience. So don't let nervousness get in the way of it, because again, it's just fear of unknown stuff. It's not real. So again, don't let that stop you. Get your butt back in the gym and go train.
Martin Cologne. Thank you for your support. First, love your content. Help me concentrate and get my blue belt.
Congrats on the blue belt.
Yeah. Second, are you guys watching UFC 251 this weekend?
Watching UFC 251.
Don't know.
Eugene, let me ask you a question. When it comes to me, what is that going to depend on?
It's depend on if you can stay up.
That's right.
And usually the answer is no.
If I can stay up that late. So I might watch UFC 251 if I look at the fights and say, okay, I'm going to stay up this late. But it's hard for me, man. I go to sleep early. So
yeah, it's tough.
It's tough for me.
It's
yeah.
tough, yeah. Let's see, Chew. Let's work our way up. Train with, okay.
Lyra Strike says, hey, Chewy, the gyms around me have closed, and I want to train with my dad, who also trains at home. We need a soft service to roll in, but mats are at least $500. Do you have any suggestions? Man, you can go. Yes, some mats can be expensive, but you can get those like puzzle mats for not nearly $500.
Yeah.
You know, I like when I was a young kid, I bought mats for the house, and I bought just the puzzle mats. How much did your rollout mats cost? Were those pretty expensive?
Yeah, I think I have
You got the Dollamurs, right?
Dollamur, and I didn't get the Flex Connect, which have like the Velcro. I just
Yeah.
got the tape. So if you keep them down, they're fine. They were probably, I think I got 10 by or 13 by 16, something like that.
Yeah,
Pretty decent size, and that thing ended up like $600.
$600, yeah.
I
So-
think it did 600, 650. But like on BJJ HQ, they'll have like, even Fuji has rollout mats now, and those were like $200 for 5 by 10. So
Okay.
you get two of them is 10 by 10.
So you might see if a BJJHQ has some, or just check out some deals or some puzzle mats.
That's the best way, man. Like,
And I'm kind of a weird guy. Like, my girlfriend would tell you, I am a frugal person about most things, but on the things that I'm not frugal at all, right? So, like, for instance, with my cars, I don't give a crap about cars. Like, I want them to be reliable and get me from place to place and all that kind of stuff. You know, with, like, the clothes that I wear, everything is very, very, like, whatever. But when it comes to things like jiu-jitsu, when it comes to things that relate to, like even informational products related to business, because, like, I want to learn new stuff, I spin big. And it's just the way I am. And even with jiu-jitsu, I've always been that way, where like I would have like, you know, a little bit of money and I would just pump it back to that. And again, that's not everybody's thing. But again, if you spent $500 for some mats that you can hang on to for a long time, I think that's, you know, maybe it's a good investment.
Trying to get some more. Somebody asked about teachers, and like, why do some teachers possibly like have favorites or play favorites with students? Like, maybe they give them more attention, more instruction. Do you think it's like because of the connection? They see like maybe something special in them. They feel like they could be a good competitor. Why do you think that is?
Everybody plays favorites. I mean, like, I don't really like I'm not a big. I don't really feel like I play favorites too hard. Now, I have people that I roll with, like in the gym. Sometimes when I roll with my students, if I'm trying to get really tough rolls, I'm going to roll with the higher belts. It's not that I'm playing favorites. That's what I need right now. But, you know, I know some coaches that play favorites, and sometimes it's just a connection that they have with that person, you know. It is what it is. Like, just like you as a person, you probably have people you favor being around. Doesn't mean that you dislike other people. Just
Right.
those are the people that you favor, you know. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you why, like, or what it is. And again, everybody's different. I don't tend to show favorites during class. The one thing I will say is that I will coach I'll coach underdogs a little bit more, the people that need a little bit of help. So it's not that I'm playing favorites. A lot of times
Right.
I'm trying to help them out. But
I understand.
you know, it's just different for everybody else. Again, but I think everybody in their core has people that they favor in their lives and people that they don't favor. And it means you don't dislike people. It just means that's what you favor. And so I don't know. But that's what I would say.
All right. Any more questions?
Let's see.
We got some more Instagram ones that are pretty good, but I'm going to do a couple more. All right, guys. We'll wrap up in a few more questions.
Knocking them out today. We're giving you guys a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Today.
All right, here's a coach question from Quasar.
Kazar.
What was the most challenging part of being a coach?
Most challenging part about being a coach. One is dealing with people's personalities, right? Like, because you're dealing with so many different personalities, and so and you gotta kind of respect that. And that's something like there's a bunch of different crazy stories I could tell you, but that's the thing, right? It's always good to remind yourself as a coach where, like, as you get better and better and better, when new people come in, you got to remember that, man, these guys were where you were at some point.
Right.
I feel like sometimes coaches forget that. You know, they lose, like, oh, I used to really suck at this, just like these guys do.
Yeah.
And I'm here to help them. You know, that wasn't hard. I'm just thinking of different ideas, because that's such a tough question when someone says, like, what is the most thing? And it's like, that's a hard thing. Honestly, here's what I'll tell you what my biggest problem was. This is not even a problem. My biggest, like, mental shift. When I became a coach, I had this idea, because I wanted to do this stuff full time. I had this idea that if I just do lots of classes, that the gym's going to blow up. It's going to get bigger and everything else, right? It's not true. It's not true. If you want to run a successful gym that's going to be able to serve people, and that's the way that I look at it, right? If our gym's open, if we're making money, we have money to give to the students to sponsor, we bring in seminars, we get to get new mats, or whatever it is that we get to do, we get to serve people on a greater level. That only happens if you got a good business, right? So, you know, it doesn't come from just the quality of your coaching. It is what it is, right? This is why McDonald's does not make the best hamburgers, but they make money hand over fist.
Right.
Right? Like, it's like, so again, it's not about the quality of the burger all the time. Now, if you have good quality coaching and you've got good quality business practices, then you've got a great thing going, because you're going to give those students so much, like, awesome stuff, and you're going to make sure that your gym doesn't close down the doors anytime something happens. Like, so for instance, when this COVID stuff started, I mean, who knows? Everything could change tomorrow. Don't know. But through the lockdown, like, we're in an okay position. We're fine. Like, we didn't get government assistance or anything else, but we're okay. And it's because, you know, me and my business partner, Joe, average Joe that was trolling you guys earlier, you know, we run a good business. And again, that's an important thing. And I can't tell you how many, like, people I unfortunately saw where they had to close down their gym doors. Yeah. And again, you can't, your gym's not it's not a frat house to just party out. It's a business if you look at it that way. And so you have to understand how to balance the two between the relationships and the coaching and the business and everything else that you do, and kind of find that middle ground where you're making sure that the students come first with whatever, but you're also taking care of yourself and the gym there as well, and the business. So this way you can stay afloat, you can keep the lights on, and you can keep serving people in a bigger way.
I think one thing that you, I think was maybe a hard thing for you to do, because essentially you used to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
You start to delegate.
That's another problem.
So, like, you would want to coach every single class, right?
Sure.
And then you started, like, you know, Adam started taking over some classes. Then we had some other people. Chad would take over classes, and that kind of
Joe Armento, Ridge.
And you saw those people grow. Like, when you did that, like, first of all, they were kind of like a little bit uncertain, like, because, you know, you got pretty big shoes to fill. Like, people come in from out of town, out of state, and train with you. You know, specifically to train with you. And so, you know, we have kind of a high standard to uphold, but I think your ability to build people up as a coach was good. And you were able to delegate, because your time, you know, because I think for a while that you were training so much that, like, you were just spread too thin, and you had all the online stuff going on, and coaching all these different classes. And I think that, you know, people started to get used to it, and the quality of the instruction was great.
Yeah. Well, and also my quality got better because I was able to actually put more effort into it.
Right, exactly.
Because, again, when I was, the delegation part's it's hard for a lot of people.
It's hard to give up that control.
Well, for me is I felt guilty.
Okay.
Because I was like, these are my guys, and I want to train with them, and I want to be here. And so for me, it was like really hard to not be on the mats with them every time there was a class going on. Like, it's difficult. Like, I remember walking past, I remember Chad started teaching the Thursday classes, and I would walk past the mat, and sometimes there would be people there, and I had to fight with every ounce of my energy to not jump on that mat because I feel like I'm supposed to be there. It's what I'm supposed to do, And so, but again, here's the thing. If I don't do some of the other things that make things work and improve, the gym doesn't stay afloat. The gym doesn't work. You know what I mean? Just the way it is. And so I had to delegate, and it's been better because a lot of those guys have grown, and it's kind of neat because then the students actually get a better vantage point where they get different perspectives on techniques and things like that, which honestly benefits them because they get to see people do, like, for instance, I remember one of the little guys, Josh Haberlin.
Yeah.
He taught a class, and Josh is like 5'1", tiny little dude.
He's the best.
Yeah, he's a brown belt, but he's tough. And he taught a move, and I remember one of the other guys that was there was like, dude, that helped me so much. He had this little detail about it. And Josh is going to have a way different sort of view on jiu-jitsu than a 215-pound bearded guy like me, So it was cool.
Josh doesn't have a beard, and he doesn't have a tooth. Poor guy.
He has. I'm missing a half. He's missing a whole.
Yeah. Father's role. Thank you.
Hey, brother. Thank you for the donation, the $10. Appreciate you, man. That's awesome.
People are donating. Thank you all. We're gonna keep doing this, and we're gonna get a new podcast room eventually. So
yeah, we're not
gonna be on Grandma's table anymore.
Yeah, I say we're working on it. Eugene's working on it.
Me and my dad actually. We're just like building everything out. It's just so we want to have more space, and I've got a surprise guest for the first in podcast guest that we're gonna have. I won't tell y'all who it is.
Who's it gonna be?
It's a good one. It's a good one. We all know.
I don't even know who the guest is.
We all know and love him. Don't worry about it.
I don't even know who the guest is. He's making this up on the fly.
I'm not making it up.
No, I mean he's making. I don't know what's going on. I never know what's going on. I literally just sit down here on this camera with you guys, and I'm just kidding with you guys. Only partially.
Yeah, you guys have been awesome. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Chew, let's do one more.
Let's do one more.
Wrap it up.
All right, let me pick one real quick. And
lots of great questions, and we'll probably hit up some of these questions that we didn't get to.
Some of these questions are going to make it to a YouTube video for sure, because some of these I would like to kind of dive into them a little bit deeper.
Maybe a podcast.
So these will definitely make it to a podcast and a YouTube video in the future.
And while Chewy's looking, guys, thank you all to Charlotte's Web has been our CBD, our sponsor for our CBD. They're awesome. They make great stuff. Use code Chewjitsu, and then Matt at Epic Roll does all his own designs. He's awesome at what he does, so we appreciate him for his support. And Jugo, James, has been a supporter of the podcast. He gave a bunch of these decks he wants to give out to you guys, so thanks to him as well. JugoPlay.com. And use the promo code Chewjitsu to save a little money.
Here's a good one. This one comes from Killer Colorado.
Killer Colorado.
Says, what's been the most unexpected part of your jiu-jitsu journey, the most rewarding?
Ooh.
I want to say this. So let's just call it grappling, because wrestling I feel like is a part of my jiu-jitsu, and I feel like that's really where I started doing like grappling in general, right? So I just kind of put it under the same umbrella. So 20 years of grappling. I started back in 2000. What is the most like unexpected thing? I never expected to get into wrestling or jiu-jitsu or anything in it for it to fundamentally shift me into a different mindset.
Yeah.
I got into jiu-jitsu. Let's say I got into wrestling because I wanted to hang out with the guys that were on the football team that were wrestling, and I wanted to lose some weight, and they said it was great for doing that, so I jumped in, and then it was like this brotherly camaraderie bond that we connected, and that's really what brought me in. And then I wanted to win medals and stuff like that. I was chasing these externals. When I got into jiu-jitsu, I wanted to learn how to fight. I wanted to learn how to do submissions. I wanted to keep competing because I wanted to win medals. But one of these things that happened is that through jiu-jitsu and through wrestling, again, I had when I got into wrestling, I had a pretty low bit of self-confidence. I wasn't very confident in myself at the time. I had years ago I had been jumped when I was 11 years old, got the crap beat out of me by people that were 16, 18 years old, and it changed me as a person who I ended up gaining a lot of weight. I had what I talked to a woman who's a psychologist. She's like, you definitely had some trauma, right? And my whole personality changed, and my confidence just went down the tubes. And I remember getting into wrestling and like doing things where I would do things that I thought were impossible. Like with weight loss was one of them. I always thought I was just gonna be a fat kid. I started losing weight. So I'm not fat anymore, right? And I remember going against people in wrestling tournaments where they were like the dudes that were really good. That I'm competing against them, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm probably gonna lose this match, and then I beat them. I'm like, I won. I thought it was impossible. When I got into jiu-jitsu, I remember winning fights and winning grappling matches. I remember like I've become better at jiu-jitsu than I ever actually thought was even possible. Because I was like, back then, like there was no black belts. I was being taught by a purple belt. I thought maybe blue belt if I was lucky. I was like, I'm never going to be a black belt. That's just not on the table. I'm just going to train and be the best I can, but it's not on the table. You know, because I sucked really bad when I first started too. I made all the hardest mistakes that I try to coach people through the videos and through my gym that I try to coach people through out of. I made all of them. That's why I know that they're there, right? I made all those damn mistakes, and that's why I actually do the videos and stuff like that. So like maybe like if, for instance, if I touch the hot stove like full on and burn the hell out of my hand, I just want to let you know the stove is hot, so maybe you just touch it and you get a little burn. You still have to feel the mistake, but maybe you don't get as bad as I was. But with that, when you all of a sudden you start doing these things that seemed, again, it's not the crazy stuff, whatever, but for me it seemed impossible, things that I wanted, but they seemed impossible. It like shifts your mind, because then you're like, okay, well, if I want to do this thing that has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, we'll talk about other things in life where you're like, well, I thought this was impossible too, but I made it happen. I wonder if I can make this happen. And then you make something happen. It starts to, it shifts the way that you think. I remember when my wrestling coach, he used to always tell us, he would say, you are the master of your own destiny. He would say it over and over and over again. You are the master of your own destiny. And, you know, when you take control in some aspect of your life, it basically reminds you of that. Like, you know, for wrestling and jiu-jitsu, it was something like that, where basically I was really good at this thing. And it taught me the values of hard work, the virtues of, you know, of persistence, resilience, constant learning, always trying to improve, all these different things that I think are incredibly valuable that we all need to be the best people that we can be. It taught me those things. I never expected to learn them like I did, but it taught me those things. And then those things have crossed over into every other aspect of my life and have made me the man that I am today. And so I never expected to go through any of that. I never expected to do the things that I've done, to be the person I've become. But that has been the most unexpected and what I would consider a rewarding thing. Like, I'm glad I've won medals. I'm glad I've done all that stuff. But being able to do that's been really cool. And probably the most rewarding part of it is being in a situation where I get to wake up day to day, and my sole focus in life, my sole like career, if you will, is to help make people better, to help lift people up. That's what I do day to day. If you're in the gym, I'm going to try to give you, whether we're goofing off on the mats, I'm going to try to make you have a great day. I'm going to try to teach you something. I'm going to try to make you a little bit better at jiu-jitsu, and I'll be there if you need something. If you're watching from the videos, I'm going to try to make you a little bit better. I'm going to try to answer your question with the most genuine sincerity that I have to try to help you out. And that's a hell of a place to be. And that's probably been the most rewarding thing about doing any of this stuff, is that now, like, by building myself up into a level that I never thought was possible for me. Again, I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, but being able to then spin back around and say, let me help you out. That's been probably the most rewarding thing, and probably one of the most expected things, because I never expected to be in that situation. So, yeah.
For me, surprising, man. I'm surprised at the impact, like how much of my life revolves around jiu-jitsu. I think that how much it's made me kind of better able to deal with certain, difficulties, and it just made me better. I'm really surprised that, it's done what it's done for me, honestly. And you put in, and what you put in, you get back. Mm-hmm. If you,
I think you get more.
Yeah. It's crazy.
One of Nick Pabone, I remember Pabone, one of the black belts. He's like, I've gotten more than what I've ever paid for.
Yeah.
So again, like what you value, and what you value is different. But he's like, I've gotten way more than what I've paid for.
Yeah. The rewarding piece for me, like, I don't know, I've been able to help people maybe stay in jiu-jitsu, with my knowledge of being in injuries, dealing with injuries, going to physical therapy school, not having any clue that this was going to be a part of anything, or the route that I'm going to take, or doing podcasts and stuff like that. So that's been really rewarding to be able to give back, and kind of share my knowledge with people and learn with everyone too. So, yeah.
Cool. So I see one that I want to jump on real quick.
Okay.
Or get more.
Get more questions.
Michael Bisping, did he say something negative about jiu-jitsu?
I'm not sure.
So I don't know. So
I thought he said something like jiu-jitsu doesn't work or it's
So,
not effective. I'm not sure.
look,
He's probably just trolling.
yeah, here's the thing.
The man uses jiu-jitsu.
Right. The question is, did I see what Michael Bisping said about jiu-jitsu in a street situation? What's your opinion? I don't know what he said. Here's my thoughts. It works. I mean, again, you can get into like, well, what is it? What about a gun? What about this? If you've got that situation going on, you're in a bad situation. It's going to be really tough to deal with that, regardless of what you know.
Doesn't matter what'll work.
Yeah,
you know.
But when we're talking about an average fight situation, hand to hand, which is what most fights typically are.
Yes.
It's effective. You know, even guys like that, like Renzo Gracie, who used to fight like tons and tons of fights back in the day, right?
It's been like shot and stabbed.
Yeah,
and
it's like he talks about like it's not just the techniques. It's the awareness of where you are in space, right? So, for instance, I can be in the middle of a roll with someone, like going through and doing all this stuff, and then I'll instantly realize that I'm really close to someone, and I'll stop because I know that I'm really close to this person over here. And you know where you are in space, and you're able to deal with stress, and you're able to think in the chaos, right? So, like a lot of times when people, there's fight, flight, and freeze, right? A lot of people that have not experienced like fighting situations, they freeze up. So again, one of the things it does is it desensitizes you to that. So again, I think that if you're going to do something for self-defense, you should do jiu-jitsu, boxing, everything, right? Just learn at least jiu-jitsu,
right,
wrestling, or some sort of grappling form, judo, and then learn how to strike. Boxing, kickboxing, something else, right? Don't just depend on one, right? I mean, to me, it's like if you want to fight, striking's a part of it, and it's not just defending the strikes, it's understanding how they work, because if you understand how a strike works, you can better defend against it. It's like if you're a guard passer, if you understand how the bottom submissions work, you can defend against them better because you understand how they work. So again, I would never depend on one thing for just all my self-defense needs. So I think you should, you know, for me, I've trained boxing for plenty of years, did kickboxing, I did jiu-jitsu, wrestling, so I have all of that stuff too. I have a weapon, I have a gun. I train with it. I take it out. I use it. I practice with it, so I get used to using it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a tool. Don't think you have it. Like, well, I got this one thing I can. Just learn it all and immerse yourself with as much information as possible.
And I think one thing about jiu-jitsu, I think TJ said something about don't play guard in a street fight. But what if you lose your balance? Exactly. What if you end up on your back? Like, do you know how to do a technical stand-up? Do you know how to cover distance?
The thing is here's the thing. Everybody's got these things, okay? Everybody's got a phone. You can take that darn phone around, and you can look on YouTube, and you can see people recording fights. And again, like, there are times where, I mean, the fight goes crazy, and sometimes you don't have the choice that you don't want to play guard. But you can also sometimes have the ability to take the fight down if you want to.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, again, there's different things about it, but again, I think a lot of people like to have this argument about it. The reality is I've talked to too many police officers. I've talked to too many people that have had to protect themselves. I've had the experience myself. It friggin' works. So again, I know there's always this drive as humans where if something is accepted, like people say jiu-jitsu is effective, right?
Yes.
There's this drive to say, no, it's not. And they'll try to find something because they just don't want it to be right, you know? But it works. I hate to tell you that. Just because sport jiu-jitsu, sport jiu-jitsu, yes, a lot of it is not going to be applicable in a street fight. But I'm not a dum-dum. No one else, like, go watch Ryan Hall, go watch Matt Serra, guys that have been in sport jiu-jitsu, and they're incredible at sport jiu-jitsu. Get into a fight, they don't, like, flip upside down. They take people down and get on top of them and close the distance, right? Again, you don't have to be a rocket doctor to understand that. It's a silly thing. Just because I'm doing something for fun doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do, right? You know, when you go to the range and you pick out, like, what you play with one of the guns that is so not applicable for any normal,
you're never going to use it.
You're never going to use it in a home defense situation or a self-defense situation, but you just want to play with it, right? You're just like, I just want to play around with this weapon. It seems like a fun one to use, right? It's like the same thing with jiu-jitsu. If all I did was practice pure self-defense techniques, it would be the most boring art ever. I would have quit a long time ago because part of the fun is I want to try something against you. We're playing the game, you know? And so again, I understand these arguments because people look at a jiu-jitsu match and they'll say, that wouldn't work in a street fight. Yeah, but it's not a street fight. That's not what they're doing. Like, that's a silly argument. They're competing. To me, though, competitions are still more stress-inducing, and they're far more realistic than setting up stupid scenarios. Because I've seen some of this self-defense stuff in jiu-jitsu. You see it in other martial arts, like McDojo Life. He posts all that silly stuff, you know? But I've seen jiu-jitsu gyms where they were trying to catch punches.
Yeah.
I was like, what on earth?
It's not jiu-jitsu, bro.
This is what...
That is not jiu-jitsu.
No, this was a strict jiu-jitsu gym under a respectable lineage, and they're trying to catch punches. I was like, bro, you're trying to catch a punch, you're gonna get hit. Like if you ever have a guy that can actually like throw a good punch, you're gonna get hit in the mouth. Like don't try to catch a punch. Like it's a bad idea. I mean, we used to do it as a joke sometimes with our gloves on.
Yeah.
But like you can't.
That's your glove too. It's a lot more.
A lot more like gripping, right? But I'm like, okay, man. You know, so I'm like, again, I've seen plenty of like silly stuff going like where it's like these scenarios and stuff. And it's like, but if you can't do it live, to me the secret sauce of jiu-jitsu and other like wrestling, judo, sambo, kickboxing, like Muay Thai, you know, boxing, all that stuff, is the realism of reality constantly doing it. Yes, like even in boxing, the way that you stand and stuff like that, it's probably not going to be the best idea for a pure fight situation because someone could tackle you, and if you're in a shell like bottled up, they can just pick you up and dump you. But in a boxing situation, it's fine. And again, you're going to be better for having that boxing realism and training that boxing realism and understanding how that works.
I saw somebody post about a pure like sport jiu-jitsu guy at a purple belt. I would take them in a street fight over somebody that's got no training.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if they all do sport jiu-jitsu,
Bro.
never been in a fight, and they bear and bow all the time. I would take them because they could probably take your ass down and get on top and choke you out.
Here's the thing. People like to make this argument on the sport jiu-jitsu, and I don't care either way. Do whatever you want to do, but don't talk trash about someone just because they do it a little differently, right? Because again, then you become like dogmatic religion, right? If you don't do it the way we say you're supposed to exactly, then you're a heretic, right? Burn at the stake. It's so ridiculous. But it's like just like people are going to do things differently, and that's friggin' how it is, man. Like you don't have to like it's absurd. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'm getting angry.
Ooh.
But if you've actually been to a sport, when I get done with a sport match, I'm battered up. Like we've got busted eyes and everything else.
Look at Atos, man.
I mean, dude, like when you see guys train for sport jiu-jitsu, it's rough stuff, man. It's not easy. It's not like an easy thing that you go through. And to me, like, I've been in a fight in the street. I've been in a fight in MMA. I've been in plenty of grappling matches. Been in wrestling matches, and I can tell you that those wrestling matches and those jiu-jitsu matches have both prepared me effectively for getting into a fight situation where I have to move on instinct and I don't have time to think, and getting ready for a fight situation where I had to fight.
Yeah.
You know, but same thing with boxing, sparring with boxing. I sparred a lot, and it prepared me to be able to punch and get punched and defend punches in a fighting situation. So again, it's one of these things where people will say this, but again, the proof's in the pudding, man. Like I've never walked across like some guy who just randomly, even that one fight that again, to me, it was a silly fight. It shouldn't have happened. But there was those guys in the basketball.
He did like a leg lock.
Yeah, so like the guy like threw a punch at him. He grabbed him, fell back, ended up basically, he ended up on a bottom position. Weaseled his way through it, put the guy in a heel hook position, and was like ready to rip that dude's leg apart, right? Yeah. And even like Dean Lister was talking about the old Sambo guy.
Sure.
He said, man, he goes, I
don't want to be able to walk to his car and shoot me.
Right. So he's like, I'll leg lock him so I can rip off his leg so he can't walk to his car and get his gun to shoot me. So, I mean, again, it's one of these things where, to me, the magic of it, and even Bruce Lee talked about this. Bruce Lee was saying, like, you take a traditional martial artist that's done a lot of katas and a lot of this stuff, and you put him up against a wrestler who's boxed for a year, wrestling and boxing for a year. The wrestler and boxer will beat him. Sure. Because of the way they train. It's constant, all the time training where you're pushing each other. I mean, when you look at like Kama, or not Kama, but Jigoro Kano, like that was one of the big things. Like, okay, let's take out some of these lethal techniques so we can practice this more live all the time, and then we can make it cleaner so that people, because again, his idea was that like, it's hard to sell to people to have all these eye gouges and these strikes and everything else. So let's clean some of that stuff out of it, make it a little bit more widespread, and we can always add the other stuff out into it, Right. And then the judoka went around the world spreading it, and Japanese people being a lot smaller, they were able to defeat a lot of bigger opponents. You know what I mean? So again, it's just an interesting thing where we like to get on these sides about it, but again, it works. I'm not saying it's going to be foolproof, and I still encourage people to strike, but just because people say it doesn't work doesn't mean it's true. Because again, more often than not, I'm sure there might be someone out there, but I have never come across a high-level jiu-jitsu competitor or a skilled jiu-jitsu competitor, even just a good one, right? A good one that's won matches. I've never come across a good jiu-jitsu competitor with some experience that's gotten like ragdolled in a fight. And again, if there was, it'd probably be over here, right? And again, part of that comes from confidence, because they're not going to go looking for problems, right? Second thing is a lot of times when you are confident in yourself, you put off a certain vibe. Like, you're not going to walk around, like, you're going to walk around confident, and people they're not going to mess with you as much. But even then, it's like, again, you might even have, like, for me, like, there's been a couple times where people have said things to me in like bars and stuff. I walk away. I'm like, I'm not doing this, dude. Like, I just got done fighting all day long, getting ready for like a match or something. I don't want to fight here. Like, I'm gonna go because I need to train in the morning.
Yeah.
You know? So I have nothing to prove to you. You know, but if I have to protect myself, I can, and it's been effective. So again, if jiu-jitsu is just completely failing in mass, it would be on the internet. It'd be everywhere because fights are recorded constantly.
That's a great point.
I mean, it's like what I think about like UFOs and stuff. Because everybody used to say that UFOs were always happening. There was always UFO sightings back in the day. But then it's like now we have everybody in the world has a friggin' camera at their fingertips, and we've got like very few sightings. Where's some sightings at?
There were a few. There's one that Navy SEAL.
Well, that one's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. But I'm saying it's like, they're not like all these people. The beam came down and I was flying through the air and stuff. It's like, okay, man.
What kind of drugs were you on there, sir?
But I'm like, how come we got these things and now the aliens don't come anymore? You know. Now again, Commander Fravor, yeah, that was one where he was like,
that was a crazy one.
That was a crazy because it's like that's a friggin' legit fighter pilot.
Yeah,
he's out there like flying.
And then he said things I think that were later on like they proved some of those things were accurate.
Yeah,
I don't know the details. It's been a while.
So I thought things interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We talked about aliens.
I know, right? We got into aliens on the podcast. Welcome.
We got more. We got more aliens. We'll talk about another time. Chewy. So let's wrap it up. What do you got going on? Anything right now?
So things going
Products. You've got your vault.
So the only thing I got going on right now, trading wise. So check us out. So we've got our normal stuff going on, just training, everything else. If you guys want to see what I've got going on, whether it be new series, events, or whatever, if you go to any of my videos, if you look down in the description, there's a little link there. You'll get a free ebook, and I will throw you into my my newsletter that you will get typically Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday. And yeah, I've got the vault, which is my membership thing. I don't really talk about it too much because I don't want to get too many people in there. But it's in the back end of my website, and it's like a monthly thing. I only open up enrollment once a week or once a month.
Oh, nice.
So you can only get in there on the first week of the month. And I put together stuff for basically mindset training, physical training, and then jiu-jitsu training, and that comes in every month.
Nice.
And there's a bunch of different stuff with that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, otherwise, I'm glad you guys were here. Thank you guys for joining in with us today. And
we'll contact the winners. We'll message them.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll give out Epic Roll Rash Guard.
Epic Roll Rash Guard. We'll give away some stuff, and then we'll contact you guys with that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks to our sponsors, Epic Roll, BJJ, and Charlotte's Web CBD. Use promo code Chewjitsu.
All right. Later, guys.
See y'all.